Faites l'appel, s'il vous plaît, Madame le greffier.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier. Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Brelade.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de la Trinité. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Madame le connétable de Saint-Martin. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Gruville.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Ouen. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Sauveur.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Southern. Madame le député Labbé.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Tadier. Monsieur le député Luce.
Présent.
Madame le député Dublé.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Morel.
Présent.
Madame le député Lehegara.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Ayer.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le député Alves.
Présente.
Madame le député Gardner. Monsieur le député Gorst.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Farnham. Madame le député Moore.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Ozov.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Balash.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Coles.
Présent.
Madame le député Poré. Monsieur le député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le député Miles.
Présente.
Madame le député Scott.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Renouf.
Présent.
Madame le député Curtis. Madame le député Feltham.
Présente.
Madame le député Binet.
Présente.
Madame le député Jeune.
Présente.
Madame le député Millar.
Présente.
Madame le député Howell.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Binet.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Ferry.
Présent.
Madame le député Kovac.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Curtis.
Présent.
Madame le député Ward.
Présente.
Madame le député Wilson.
Présente.
Madame le député Stevenson.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Andrews.
Monsieur le doyen.
Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et les puissances de la terre pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir les cœurs et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, de les conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit que toute leur délibération est accompagnée de ta bénédiction. Réussisse au bien-être et au soulagement du peuple qu'il te plut de commettre à leur soin. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par le mérite de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui es aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite en la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonnons nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous envoie pas en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal, car à toi la règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier. Madame le connétable de Saint-Martin.
Sir, the Constable of St Martin's is attending a medical appointment, sir, and will be with us as soon as possible. I ask that she be excused.
Members content to mark the connétable excusé? Excusé.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Ouen.
Sir, the Constable of St Juan is accompanying a close family member to a medical appointment and hopes to join us as soon as he can, sir. I ask that he also be excused.
Members content to mark the connétable excusé? Excusé.
Thank you.
Monsieur le député Southern.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Tadier.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Farnham.
Therefore, les États sont constitués. Turning to the consolidated order paper, there are under B a number of subordinate enactments, number of matters presented or laid under C. The following propositions have been lodged under D. P63, Draft Dogs Law Amendment Regulations, amendment lodged on the 20th of October by the Comité des Connétables. P68, Commercial Properties and Leases, amendment lodged on the 5th of November by the Council of Ministers. P68, Commercial Properties and Leases, amendment lodged on the 10th of November by the Comité des Connétables. P70, Proposed Budget Government Plan, Amendment Development Levies, lodged on the 31st of October by Deputy Kovacs. P70, Proposed Budget Government Plan, Second Amendment, Health Insurance Fund Contribution, lodged on the 4th of November by Deputy Balash. P90, Draft Policing of Parks Amendment Regulations, lodged on the 27th of October by the Minister for Infrastructure. P91, Draft Jersey Gas Company Amendment Law, lodged on the 27th of October by the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. P92, Draft Social Security Amendment Regulations, lodged on the 20th of October by the Minister for Social Security. P93, Draft Finance Budget Law, lodged on the 20th of October by the Minister for Treasury and Resources. P94, Management and Maintenance of the Half-Day Pass site, lodged on the 20th of October by Deputy War. P95, Draft Public Records Amendment Law, lodged on the 28th of October by the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. P96, Suspension of Deputy Ozef, lodged on the 20th of October by the Privileges and Procedures Committee. P97, Draft Animal Welfare Law, lodged on the 29th of October by the Minister for the Environment. P98, Draft Register of Intellectual Property Law, lodged on the 20th of October by the Minister for External Relations. P99, Draft Taxation, International Tax Compliance, Crypto Asset Reporting Framework Regulations, lodged on the 29th of October by the Minister for External Relations. P100, Draft Taxation, Implementation, International Tax Compliance, Common Reporting Standard Amendment Regulations, lodged on the 29th of October by the Minister for External Relations. And P101, breaches of the Code of Conduct Review of Standing Orders, lodged on the 4th of November by Deputy Kovacs. Nothing under E, F, G, H. Under I, a number of written questions have been posed to which answers have been provided. We now come to oral questions with notice. There are 15 questions, which works out at about 9 minutes per question. And the first question will be put by Deputy Ozef to the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Deputy Ozef.
Thank you, sir. I think I'm the first member to address you as bailiff, sir, so thank you. Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether she considers the proposed budget government plan 2026-29 is a bridging budget, as stated at a recent scrutiny hearing? And if so, will she explain how the decisions to draw down reserves and to reduce the state's grant temporarily aligned with the Fiscal Policy Panel's recommendation that day-to-day spending is unsustainable and that these short-term measures risk deepening Jersey's structural deficit and fuelling domestic inflation? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I thank Deputy for his question. So the budget, this budget covers the period 2026 to 2029, which, as we will all be very well aware, includes the general election. While the budget sets out a balanced plan for the next 4 years, we must recognise that a new Assembly and a new government will be setting a budget in 2027 and will need and wish to align it to their own priorities. Describing the plan as a bridging budget is therefore entirely sensible. The Fiscal Policy Panel have long recommended that we strengthen our reserves, and this government took action in the last budget through the transfer of the prior year basis taxation debtor to the Strategic Reserve, and this will happen before the end of this year. Drawdowns from the Social Security Reserve are made only to cover the cost of pensions and other benefits, which is exactly in line with the purpose of that fund. Government is not drawing down from the reserves for services during this budget. It is still putting £184 million into the fund through the state's grant. I think we can all agree with the FPP that the previous growth in the public sector is not sustainable, and all members need to work together to ensure that we don't continually add more spending to the budget without regard for how we will pay for it. However, making changes to curtail the growth should be done in a considered manner, understanding the impacts. This must be a focus in the coming years to ensure we will build more sustainable public finances for the future. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. I have to say I am very sympathetic to everything that the Treasury Minister said. In that interview with the scrutiny panel, she also said that, in her view, I think that the Treasury Minister the position should be reasserted, that it's the Treasury Minister's budget as opposed to the Council of Ministers. I wonder, in answering the question concerning a bridging budget, whether or not she would seek the powers of reclaiming the powers back for the Treasurer and the Treasury Minister to ensure that she can put a budget before this Assembly or any Treasury Minister, as was the case in the past, when there is a structural deficit with corrective action.
Minister.
So that is an interesting question, and I think, yes, I did say that during the scrutiny hearing. My understanding, and I have to confess to not being fully aware of what the changes were, is that some changes were made in 2019 to the Public Finances Law, and that did remove some of the Treasury Minister's powers. And, for example, the budget is a budget that is lodged by the Council of Ministers, and it's not the Treasury Minister's budget. I have asked my team to look into what those changes were and what we think the impacts of some of those changes were. We have already suggested in the budget that we will return to a multi-year budgetary process rather than the year-on-year, which we've been doing for the last few years, and to then consider what further changes should be made to reinvigorate, shall I say, the Treasury Minister's powers. I think the reality is that's not something that will be completed in this term, but it is work that I have instructed my officers to commence. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister agree that simply curbing the growth in annual expenditure does not go far enough with the economy and the finances in the position that they are? And it's time that the government returned to the work of the previous government, which was addressing stopping and simplifying the delivery of services in order to properly address and reduce the annual expenditure of government.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I don't believe that work has necessarily stopped. In the last couple of years, departments have been asked to make efficiencies, to reprioritise services, to look at what services need to continue, and I agree that work has to continue, and it has continued. We have taken real steps to make savings and efficiencies, and we can point to that both in health and in other departments. So I agree with the Deputy that work has to continue, and we all have to play a part, but we all have to remember that we have constant demands for new money and new spending, and we all have to remember that that new spending has to be paid for. But the government is also putting money into economic growth in a variety of areas. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary. Deputy Banash.
Does the Minister agree that it is in the public interest that an individual minister should have responsibility for the island's budget?
Minister.
I believe that was the pattern for a very long time, and I think since that stopped being the case, we have seen the very big increase in spending that we have seen in the last 5 or 6 years.
Supplementary.
Could the minister answer the question?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister explain how she believes the budget maintains fiscal discipline while addressing some of the growing pressures in housing, health and infrastructure?
So
Minister.
as I've indicated, we are taking steps to curb growth in the public sector, particularly by reducing the use of consultants, by trying to take out extra layers of management, by looking at senior managerial roles, and in the meantime by preserving what we would call frontline jobs. Now, we could all argue about what frontline jobs are, and that seems to really narrow down in most people's minds to health and education. Very many of the new jobs we've seen are in fact in education. We have a very significant number of new teaching assistants, and we have continued to recruit in health. Fiscal discipline is something that sits with the AOs. They are all very well aware of the need to come in within budget. We have been speaking to them since as long as May to make sure that they are coming in budget, but many of them will tell you that's easier said than done. Fiscal discipline, I absolutely agree, but it comes down to all government can only control so much, and everybody in this assembly, I keep saying, has a part to play in restraining spend, and if everybody brings forward propositions requiring us to spend more money, it makes it very difficult for government to balance the books. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to the Minister for that. One of the things that would be helpful to understand is how the overspends, if they do occur, will be addressed in this budget.
Minister.
To the extent there are overspends, we think we already know what they are at this time of year. We know what the extent of the overspends are. Accountable officers are responsible for those. They have been asked to look at action plans to bring themselves in line. There will be some departments where for a number of good unavoidable reasons that's not going to be possible, but there is funding in the contingency reserve to meet the overspends that we believe we have at the present. But we really need to get back onto a basis where people are not exceeding budget. People must come in budget in future. Thank you, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Joseph.
Thank you, sir. I must say I welcome the Treasury Minister's acknowledgement that the powers of the Minister need to be restored in law, and congratulate her for saying so openly yes to Deputy Barlas's question. Will she now notwithstanding the fact that those changes into law may not be in this Parliament in this term of office, would she at least undertake to require her ministerial colleagues to bring forward an options paper on how they would collectively, under the current arrangements, close that structural deficit, that black hole, so that islanders can actually understand what the difficult trade-offs that they're going to be asked to make and the future post holder will be asked to make to close that deficit. You can only close a deficit by either reducing spending, growing the economy, or raising taxes. And would she agree to do that?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I don't believe I have the powers to require my colleagues to do anything. I can ask them to do it and I can encourage them to do it, and I certainly will do that. My officers will start that work so that everybody understands what the implications are. And I'm afraid I've lost the last part of your question. Sorry.
So it was a traditional three-part plan. The Minister doesn't. It's always going to be either tax increases at the last, before that, growing the economy, and before that, expenditure reductions. There's only three ways out. You can't hide it. I think she knows that.
Yes, sir, that is the case. We either have to grow the economy. We are trying to do that. We are trying to support and promote the economy in a range of initiatives, or we have to consider our tax model. But as the FPP, anybody who came to the FPP briefings, they also acknowledged that our business model is not accommodating of significant tax changes, or we really cut our spending. And as I have said again previously, paraphrasing words of someone else, we are a small jurisdiction of 100,000 people, and we cannot have it all, and we have to stop creating bodies and structures and commissions and regulators that we can no longer afford, and look at an efficient way, an efficient and proportionate and appropriate way of getting public finances in a position that Jersey can afford and can reasonably expect, because we do have some very high expectations. And I think my heart sinks every time I see the words, we must have world-class this, global standard of this. We simply can't. And we have to recognise what we can do in a small population. And we all have to start paying attention to that. Thank you, sir.
May I raise a defo on the Chief Minister, please? Deputy Farnham, please.
Raise a defo on the Chief Minister. The defo is raised. Question 2, Deputy Andrews, will put to the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what assessment, if any, has been undertaken of the impact on animals of the use of fireworks, and whether any consideration has been or will be given to lodging amendments to the Explosives Jersey Law 1970 to restrict or to give change the use of fireworks to reduce any such impact?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for the question. When it became evident that I was going to be unable to actually bring any changes to the regulations in relation to pyrotechnics, I took it upon myself to meet with members of the community. I am not an animal expert, even though I have been brought up with animals and I still have dogs. So I spoke to people in the community who do have a variety of animals. Alongside, I've had some correspondence with vets as well. So I, like the Deputy, do have concerns in relation to animals and fireworks. However, sir, I would also like to say that this isn't only an impact on animals, but this has a significant impact on our community as a whole, because they are people that have an impact with fireworks, not just animals.
Supplementary.
Yes, please, sir. I would really like to know what action is going to be taken before the Minister's term of office ends. Thank you, sir.
Minister.
As I've explained to the Deputy, as it became apparent that I had no facility or no capacity to be able to look at this as a piece of legislation, due to the 5 pieces of legislation under the Violence Against Women and Girls, child detention, police complaints framework, modernisation of precautions arrangements for tall buildings, post-Grenfell Tower. I have post-custodial arrangements, etc., etc. So all of those pieces of legislation are well in train and will be completed by the end of this term of office. It is not possible, sir, even though I would like to have been able to do something more in relation to this piece of legislation as well as fireworks, it has not been possible. I did intend, and I probably will in the next 6 months, have some conversation with a member of the Comité de Connétable, because I would like to start talking to them about the possibilities.
Deputy Joseph.
Thank you, sir. I wonder whether the Minister would be kind enough to agree with the fact that there is currently a well-established voluntary arrangement where somebody is having a firework display, that they go around and they visit the individuals, and particularly horse owners, that may be affected. Would she at least undertake to request that the constables send out messages, which I know maybe they do? The St Saviour situation was clear. I received 2 visits from individuals asking whether or not I objected to a firework display, and I discussed it and said about horses. Would she agree that there is some informal routes that may well be able to be made in advance of a legislative change if necessary, and would she undertake to advance that with the constables? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Sir, that is exactly what I had considered in relation to speaking to the Comité de Connétable. This is a fairly complex situation, and obviously not only have I spoken to animal owners and those that actually look after animals, but I've also obviously spoken to the organisers of fireworks as well. And this is something that will need to be done, sir. But of course, it's also not as simple as the notification, because you cannot be in a position where you are going to potentially sedate animals on a regular basis as to the number of firework displays that now are beyond what is the 5th of November.
Supplementary.
No, sir. Thank you. I thank the Minister.
Supplementary. Question 3, Deputy Joan will put to the Minister of the Environment. Deputy Joan.
Thank you, sir. Further to the proposed reductions to his budget, department's budget set out within the proposed budget 2026 to 2029, which he has stated would severely undermine service delivery across the board, will the Minister advise what services will be stopped or scaled back as a result of these reductions, and what specific impact, if any, he anticipates they will have on the department's ability to deliver its core functions?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, 2026 is going to be an extremely challenging year to manage within allocated expenditure for both the Regulation and Natural Environment Directorates. However, I am committed to living within budget, but I must say that with declining income, my options are very limited. The Deputy asked the question, and the work streams likely to be most affected might include one or some of the following: marine offshore heavy metals analysis, annual marine reporting, blue carbon research, FEPA planning application responses, public marine outreach and education, countryside access path and rights of way management, climatology data and reporting, air quality monitoring, biodiversity consultation to planning applications, animal welfare visits, capacity to monitor and help enforce wildlife legislation, ability to comply with UK and global policy reporting obligations, Asian hornet control, and the state of nature reporting requirements.
Supplementary.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Could the Minister advise how he determines which areas of his department's work are prioritised for funding, specifically how he weighs up what constitutes not just a priority but a necessity or risk, especially after that list that the Minister has just provided us?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. That's not an easy question to answer, but I did try to explain to it in a recent scrutiny hearing. Obviously, all ministers, I think all states members have priority lists, and when something new arrives, you have to decide where in the list you put it. Something like PFAS, something like the results of Brexit happening, something like housing standards laws being changed and passed. We all have to accept that there's different risks and we have to reprioritise, but certainly statutory work that has to be done, you know, has to go towards the top of the list, and some of the work which is nice to do, really important to do, but some of that work sometimes has to go further down the list as is required.
Thank you, Minister. Question 4, Deputy Renouf will put to the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy Renouf.
Thank you, sir. Further to written question 393/2025, and in light of the increase in the health budget included in the proposed budget 2026 to 2029, will the Minister provide the total cost of COVID and flu vaccines that were not used in 24 and in 2025 to date?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there was no cost to the island for unused COVID vaccinations in 2024, and that's because the vaccine was provided free of charge by the UK for the eligible groups, and this is the same for 2025. With regard to the value of unused flu vaccine, because there are 3 different vaccine types, all with different prices, and a large part of the campaign was delivered by private providers, the exact details of vaccine types used and vaccine types remaining isn't actually available. That said, we're pretty clear that both COVID and flu vaccine uptake in 2024 was down compared to 2023. That situation certainly wasn't predicted, and we accept that the levels of unused vaccine was probably quite high. As for 2025, we're still at a very early stage, but early indications suggest that we're ahead of this time last year, and efforts will continue to encourage uptake. We also reduced the amount of vaccine ordered this year, and given that we're expecting a rise in influenza infections in the next couple of weeks, we're expecting to see waste levels reduced considerably for the coming winter. I hope that answers the Deputy's question, sir.
Supplementary.
Yes, sir. My calculations based on the answer to written question 393 suggest that about 45% of COVID vaccines were unused as a result of the data that he provided. It's reassuring to know that cost doesn't fall on the Jersey taxpayer, but I wonder, given that it is nevertheless a waste, what does the Minister think are the reasons for that level of unused vaccines?
Minister.
So I would just say that I'm no happier than the Deputy about the idea of any waste. The Deputy made reference to the fact that we're looking for more money for health, and I fully accept that we shouldn't be allowing waste in any way, shape or form. I do wonder, there seems to be some online resistance to vaccinations, which I think is being very damaging, and I think that's seen across the vaccination piece. And I would say, in terms of being accurate, everything that we do in health, as I've made the point before, is manual, and I think if we had a fully digitised system, we'd be very much better able to judge at the end of a season what hadn't been used. We need that data because we need to make sure that we're spending our money properly. So I'm in accord with the Deputy very much on the need to save money, sir.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister advise if the surplus vaccine have been donated to vulnerable groups, overseas territories, if it could be used and not wasted?
Minister.
I'm afraid, off the top of my head, I couldn't answer that. But knowing the team as I do at Public Health, I would imagine that if that was a possibility, that's something that they would have done. I'm not entirely sure if that is possible, but if it is possible, I would certainly hope that they've done that, sir.
Supplementary.
Sure, and I welcome the Minister's first answers. Would the Minister summarise what lessons have been incorporated in the future immunisation planning?
Well, so we have a joint committee for vaccinations and immunisations, and they look at all of the data that they can achieve every year, and they make decisions about what types of vaccine and the amount of vaccine to order again for the next year. So that task falls to them, and I can only suggest that they do that to the best of their ability, sir. But as I say, if we had better data, we could make better decisions.
Final supplementary, Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. The issue arose because a member of the public told me that they had asked for a vaccine, had heard that there was an excess of vaccinations and had asked to be included, and were told they couldn't be, even though vaccines were being thrown away. So my question to the Minister is, would he be prepared to consider widening the criteria for vaccination so that vaccines are not thrown away and more people are able to take advantage of them?
Minister.
So that on the face of it, that seems a little suggestion. It's not something I think we should do at the beginning of a campaign, because obviously the object of the exercise is always to order the right amount for vulnerable people. But I think as I say, once again, if we had the data that we require, if we're halfway through a campaign and we can see that the uptake isn't as good as it should be, then it would make perfect sense to include people who are less vulnerable. So as I say, if we can systemize to the extent of achieving that would seem to me a perfectly logical suggestion, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Question 5, Deputy War, will put to the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy War.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister explain whether the European Union good manufacturing practice is enforced in Jersey, and if so, how? And if no, such enforcement is undertaken, why not?
Minister.
So at present, EU good manufacturing practice is not enforced in Jersey because we don't have a regulatory authority with enforcement powers. The UK's regulator, the MHRA, does not extend to Jersey. And what we do have, sir, is an agreement with the MHRA to carry out one-off inspections, which provides some reassurance, but it's not the same as having our own system to oversee and enforce standards throughout the product's life cycle. We've already begun work on what a proper proportionate framework should look like, so that products made or supplied in Jersey meet recognised international standards. And to make that happen, so we'll need cooperation and support from other departments, and I'm currently working with them to get this right. And I hope that helps cast some light on the situation, sir.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Minister. Could you tell the Assembly a little more about what that work involves and whether it will require input or support from the Economy Department?
Yes, it will. We've come to this as an island from a rather peculiar angle. That the funding for much of this work does sit with the economy department. A lot of work is being carried out by the pharmacy department, and it's all been overseen with health. We're trying to bring these threads together and make proper sense of what is required. And as I've said before, we're using some UK experts for this purpose, and I know there's a reluctance to employ consultants, but in this case we needed to find people with sort of global experience so that we could draw on them to make sure that they analysed what's required and pointed us in the right direction. So I think we start from some way back, but we're making very, very good progress, and we're getting good buy-in from the various people, including the economy department, to make that happen. So,
thank you, Minister. Question 6, Deputy Gardner will put to the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy Gardner.
Given the October marked Vaccine Injury Awareness Month, will the Minister advise that what action, if any, has been taken to recognise and to support islanders who have been suffering vaccine-related injury, particularly those resulted from COVID-19 vaccination programme?
Minister.
So, in answer to the Deputy's question, in May 24, the government adopted the Jersey Vaccine Damage Payment Scheme, and so far 8 Jersey residents have applied to the scheme, but unfortunately to date no one has been medically assessed as qualifying for compensation. Though in recent months we have organised psychological support for those who feel that they may have been damaged by the vaccines. So.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. As we know that the threshold is really high, and my question, what has the Minister met or does he tend to meet representative of the Vaccine Injury and Bereaved Jersey Group to hear directly about the challenges they faced and maybe further support can be given?
Minister. Yes, I have met with the group, and I have no doubt that I'm likely to meet with them again. I have to say that since I've been dealing with this from a political perspective, I found the whole situation rather difficult. Firstly, the bar for paying compensation has been set quite high, and that requires a 60% disability. That's got to be medically verified as having been caused as a direct consequence of vaccination. And secondly, because for any medical assessor, it's extremely difficult to ascertain what medical condition any individual may have developed post-vaccination in the ordinary course of events. And that's especially with reference to those with pre-existing medical conditions. So in all honesty, I find myself in a very difficult position, having listened to some very compelling cases, but not being a doctor, not really being in a position to ascertain what may or may not have been going to happen to that individual person with or without the vaccine. So it's a difficult situation indeed, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Question 7, Deputy Porry will put to the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy Porry.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what measures are being implemented to ensure adequate support is available for islanders experiencing mental health problems, given that Mind Jersey is no longer providing counselling services and that other agencies offering such crucial support have reported increasing difficulty in meeting the growing demand for these services?
Minister.
Sir, whilst Mind Jersey have recently ceased to provide some limited counselling services, I'd like to assure members that will not have a significant impact on mental health service users in any way. And that's because the Listening Lounge currently provide a comprehensive service utilising fully qualified British accredited counselling psychotherapists, and Jersey Talking Therapies also provide a service using psychological wellbeing practitioners. I know that recently Mind Jersey's contract to provide a service to carers came to an end, but I can also inform members that a new contract was recently awarded to a partnership to provide carer support, and that's led by the Listening Lounge, but it also includes a number of other charities, including Dementia Jersey, Focus on Mental Illness, and Jersey Eating Disorder Support Group. This year, we've also commissioned or developed a number of other services, including a physical health pilot for people with mental health needs and the Recovery Hub, which is running an increasing number of support groups. So I hope that this helps to put the Deputy's mind at rest and other members' minds at rest too, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you, sir. Is the Minister concerned by the fact that running a social media campaign on the benefits of therapeutical counselling whilst actively reducing the funding that makes it available is sending a very mixed message to the electorate? Thank you.
Minister.
I caught a bit off balance here. I wasn't aware that we were actually reducing funding because we're actually supporting all of the work that I've previously mentioned, and I can certainly check, but that certainly doesn't sound like a reduction in the support that we're offering people with mental health problems. It actually looks very much to me like an increase and an improvement, sir.
Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. Given that the services, as mentioned by the Minister, the talking therapies and the listening lounge have limited places and limited a number of slots available per client, is the Minister concerned that the increased demand by reduced services from Mind may force people into the more into the private sector where these services are not regulated?
I'm led to believe, and I've been making inquiries as recently as this morning, but I believe that Mind, I can't speak for Mind, but they weren't, the services they were providing were not of the quality that are being provided by these other providers. And I wasn't aware of a shortfall in the capacity. As a result of what Deputy Coles said, I'll certainly be looking into that, but that's something that's not been brought to my attention, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy Coles?
Yes, sir. The Minister says that he was concerned about the quality of their services being provided. Isn't quality driven up by regulation, sir, and actually having counselling services added to the professional register would be more beneficial to the public as a whole?
No, I think we've had this discussion, sir, and I think, and as I don't want to get too deeply into this because I've had limited time since all of that. I've got 5 questions this morning, and I've been trying to ensure the accuracy of them. Look, this is something I'm happy to take up outside of this, but I'm led to believe that Mind Jersey were using trainees in the counselling service, but I don't want to get any further down this road. So if the Deputy will permit me, because I need to look into this in more detail, sir.
Deputy Dubray.
Thank you, sir. The Minister mentioned that a contract with Mind Jersey has come to an end and that there may be a new contract. Does this new contract result in an overall increase or decrease in funds to this much loved and effective local charity?
Minister.
To the best of my knowledge, and I have looked at this in a bit more detail, the partnership that's been put together is going to offer a considerably more comprehensive service. As I say, it involves Dementia Jersey, focus on mental illness, the Listening Lounge, which leads the project, and Jersey Eating Disorders, and they're offering a broader and hopefully a more effective support service, and that's why the contract was given to them.
Supplementary.
So the Minister did not answer my original question, so I'd be grateful if he could answer whether Mind Jersey are receiving an increase or a decrease in funds with this new contract. And also, by what measure is the Minister making a judgment on the quality of their services?
In terms of the amount of funds that have been attributed to the new service, that's something I'd have to inquire about. And as to the judgment on the quality of the new service, well, that hasn't actually been defined by me. There's a commissioning process, and that commissioning process found that the bid that was put in by the Listening Lounge in conjunction with these other charities was the better of the options, and that what was chosen. And I think that's the process that we use, and I don't see that's I can't see any reason to suggest that wouldn't be the case, that it's a superior service on offer.
Deputy Tadeo.
Will the Minister advise whether he is monitoring waiting times for referrals for mental health services, and if so, could he tell us what the average waiting times currently are?
No, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be able to carry that level of detail around, because I would find myself monitoring anything and everything in a health service employing 3,000 people. So the answer to that is no. But if the deputy would like some information, I can certainly make some inquiries in that regard, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy Elliott?
Thank you, sir. The supplementary is really whether the Minister is aware of issues in terms of waiting times when it comes to mental health referrals, and whether he can tell us whether the waiting times are coming down or whether they're staying the same or going up.
No, so I tried to answer that the first time, and I said that I cannot monitor everything all the way through the whole system. It would be physically impossible. But if the deputy would like some details, I'm very happy to make inquiries and provide them to him, sir.
Deputy Joseph.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister kindly address whether or not, in his view, this is affecting the increasing number of islanders that are awaiting ADHD diagnosis and treatment, and therefore require counselling? He will be aware, sir, as members are, of my personal interest in this.
Well, this is a question about Nine Jersey providing counselling services. That's the original question.
And the extent to which whether or not it affects those requiring counselling services because they can't get ADHD diagnosis and treatment.
All right. Minister, can you assist in this way?
So I find I've listened carefully to that question. I don't know if I understand it fully. I've mentioned the fact that we've got some comprehensive services available from other sources, which are more comprehensive than the ones, as I understand it, that were made available from Nine Jersey. With regard to ADHD, I think the deputy knows that we're doing all we can to bring waiting lists down, and there's work ongoing with that, and I'm hoping that we're going to make some significant progress in 2025. But if the deputy is aware of anybody with ADHD that can't get the counselling services they require, I'm very happy to listen to him and see what we can do to put that straight, sir.
Supplementary?
I'm grateful for that last comment, so I'm aware of many as the Minister is aware, and I'm grateful for his comments and engagement for those people who are awaiting diagnosis and need counselling, clearly.
Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister able to clarify, to confirm that he is one of the trustees of one of the charities mentioned in the new partnership that's being awarded this contract? And if that is the case, can he confirm what involvement he had or did not have in the tender process to award that, please?
Yes, sir. Very, very happy to confirm that I'm chairman of Jersey Focus on Mental Illness. I'm also happy to confirm that I've had absolutely no involvement with their inclusion in this service whatsoever. And to be fair, I found out that they were part of this once the contract had been awarded. I would also say that this isn't a commercial business, and I think charities should be viewed, and I think they are viewed for what they deliver in their own right.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir, and I'm grateful to the Minister for that clarification that he wasn't involved. I would just question whether he should be answering this question in the State Assembly at all, but would the Minister agree with that? I don't know if I need to phrase it as a question or whether it's a point of order for you, sir, about whether he should be praised rather a lot.
I don't think there's any difficulty in answering questions in the way that he has. Have you a question or not? Do you want to ask him?
No, sir.
No, there's no question.
So if I may, I've made extensive inquiries for the Charities Commissioner about my involvement and the way I conduct myself, and I've been given basically a clean bit of health to carry on. I wouldn't have done that without taking his advice, sir.
Thank you. Final supplementary, Deputy Porry.
Thank you, sir. As the Minister stated, he is prepared to look at this situation in greater detail. Would he be prepared to consider providing the service through the hospital, and would the Minister come back to the Assembly and report it to us of the outcome of his further research? Thank you.
Minister.
So I'm sorry, but I don't think I've quite understood what I'm being asked to do, sir. But forgive me.
Do you want to repeat your question, Deputy Porry?
As the Minister has stated, in particular with the question to Deputy Coles, he is prepared to look at the situation in greater detail. Would the Minister be prepared to come back to the Assembly and report of his findings? Thank you.
So I'm not entirely sure which situation the Deputy is referring to, but I'm happy to pick it up with the Deputy in order to not delay proceedings, and I'll make that commitment, whatever that might be, sir, if that helps to move things on.
Thank you, Minister. Question 8, Deputy Balash will put to the Chair of the Privileges and Procedures Committee. Deputy Balash.
So will the Chair explain why, notwithstanding the Children Convention Rights Jersey Law 2022 requires a children's rights impact assessment, a CRIA, to be produced only where a proposition may have a direct or indirect impact on children? The State's GREF continues to expend resources in asking that a CRIA be provided with each proposition.
Chair of PPC.
Thank you, sir. I'm grateful to the Deputy for this question and apologise that it has taken such a long time for PPC to respond fully to an issue he first raised with the committee before the summer recess. The Deputy is correct that to date, a CRIA has been requested for each proposition or amendment to be lodged, unless it is explicitly exempt from the requirement in accordance with the Children Convention Rights Law. However, I can confirm that this process will change. I am conscious this may be news to members. The State's GREF will therefore circulate guidance about the new process. Essentially, in future, a CRIA will only be required for lodging purposes where the proposition or amendment is considered to have an impact on children. If the proposer's conclusion is that the proposition has no impact on children, there will be no requirement to prepare a CRIA, although a statement will be included in the accompanying report to state that fact. There has been no change to the list of propositions that are exempt from the requirement for a CRIA, even when it is thought the proposition may have an impact on children. Following the Deputy's initial approach to PPC on this subject, the committee has considered this matter and engaged with the government in order to confirm the application of the law and the process that should apply to lodging. That is why it has taken some time to make this change. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
I'm very grateful to the Chair for his response.
Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Does the Chair of PPC regard it as important that States members continue to place great importance on the findings of the Independent Jersey Care Inquiry and its examination of past failings of leaders to put children first? And if he does so, would he agree that requiring States members to have regard for their obligations to children in our society and demonstrating that through the production of a children's rights impact assessment is not too much to ask?
Chair of PPC.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely, I concur with what the Deputy has said entirely, and I obviously agree that CRIAs should be included where they are absolutely necessary under the law. But I would like to mention that obviously sometimes CRIAs have been applied. For example, there is P99, the Draft Taxation International Tax Compliance Crypto Asset Reporting Framework, as an example, whereby a CRIA has been supplied, and obviously that was not necessary in that instance. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. In what members have been sent about prospective changes to how this works, and the Chair, please can correct me if I've misinterpreted this, but my interpretation of what I read was that the first stage in this would require the States member bringing a proposition themselves to determine whether further exploration of a children's rights impact assessment is necessary, and that may be obvious in the kind of cases that the Chair has just referenced, but if ever a dispute arose and perhaps a member didn't have regard when the wider view is that they ought to have had regard, is there any safeguard in that to require a States member to think again if they've inappropriately decided in the first instance that it's not right to do a CRIA?
Chair of PPC.
Thank you, sir. Yes, there is a there's two parts, obviously the screening stage and the full CRIA, and in the screening stage, the duty bearer can generally conduct screening based on existing information and their own knowledge and expertise. And so, yes, the interpretation will be by the person who is the duty bearer who is bringing the proposition. But as the law stands, there is no way that we can instruct that person to incorporate a career at this current time, unless, of course, there was a change or an amendment to the law brought forward by the government. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Dubray.
Thank you, sir. I'm just reading the information that Deputy Mezek referred to. I'm actually quite astonished, actually, that this has only come in 15 minutes before the question, and I had no idea that this was happening. As the States member who brought this proposition, I would actually ask the Chair of PPC why there wasn't wider consultation before making this change, and also, will there be any changes to legislation required to bring this in?
Chair of PPC.
Yes, when you say that would there be any changes to be brought by PPC to bring this in, no, we are applying the law as the law is written. The consultation, there was no requirement for consultation to apply the law. We have made the interpretation, as Deputy Balash has so rightly pointed out, to have the law interpreted in the correct fashion. The release of the information this morning with the template, obviously we have only received this information recently. We've been working on it for most of the summer, and we decided to inform Deputy Balash in the first instance, and thereafter we informed all States members, and that happened to coincide with today's question. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. Was the Children's Commissioner consulted, or any discussions had with her, and what was her view?
Chair of PPC.
PPC did not consult the Children's Commissioner with the interpretation of the law. No, sir.
Deputy Braniff.
Thank you, sir. I think I heard correctly that the guidance going forward will be that if there is no impact on children, then a career will not be provided. I wonder if the Deputy could provide some clarification on that, because by some readings, there will always be an impact at some level on children as a result of activities in this assembly. And I just wondered what is meant by no impact. Is it that there's no specific impact on children? Because drawing it as no impact seems to me to be quite wide.
Chair of PPC.
Yes, well, obviously I mentioned the cryptocurrency assets, but we also have obviously Schedule 2 of the 2022 law, which states the other exemptions. And one could argue that there are plenty of those that would directly or indirectly affect children, but they are excluded. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary, does anyone? This is Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Chair of PPC, does PPC recognise the significant support given by the graphing production of careers and the fact that they are a positive move to just increase our understanding of the impact of the decisions that we make in this Assembly?
Chair of PPC.
Yes, indeed, Deputy, sir, I do accept the support of the graph in all the decisions that are made. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Further, sir, part of that support is the understanding from members that it is our decision on our belief on the impact on children. That's the key part of the screening process. So much of what we've talked about here already exists. It's our decision as States members as to what we believe the impact will be on children. And this enables us to look more clearly at that. Would the Chair of PPC agree with that? And if so, perhaps try and reiterate that to members, sir.
Chair of PPC.
Yes, indeed. I agree entirely with what the Deputy has said. Yes, it is important to follow the guidance. The guidance has been sent out, and there is a template, and obviously we need to follow the guidance, and I am quite confident that all duty bearers will be able to follow that guidance quite clearly. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. So I noted there is no formal requirement on the consultation, but I believe this particular decision could involve some engagement with the state members. Saying this, would any communications been done with the children minister?
Chair of PPC.
Yes, so that was the similar question that I was asked before. We had consultation, obviously the Deputy Banner actually obviously opposed the committee in the first instance. We are not changing the law in any way, we are just interpreting the law correctly. So that there was no need for consultation with the Children's Commission. Thank you.
Supplementary.
So I didn't ask about the Children Commission. I believe when we are changing guidance, was any engagement done with the Children Minister?
I beg your pardon, sir, I misheard. No, there was no direct engagement with the Children's Minister. Thank you, sir.
Question 9, Deputy Doublé will put to the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. In 2023, the government produced an equality impact evaluation to help policy officers assess the impact of policies on protected characteristics, including gender, disability and age, and other areas. Will the Chief Minister advise whether the evaluation is being utilised in relation to the development of all policy and legislation? And if it is not, advise why not?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. I believe it is. Policy officials across government are required to use the same policy submission template, which includes a specific section on considering equality issues when developing policy and legislation. The template requires officials to refer to the Equality Impact Evaluation Guidance document developed in 2023, and I thank the Deputy and Deputy Jern for their work on that, sir, as part of considering the impact of any proposed policy or legislation on protected characteristics.
Supplementary.
Thank the Chief Minister for his answer. Was this document used on the recent budget? And can the Minister, the Chief Minister, outline any other recent examples where this has been used and where it's had a positive impact?
Thank you, sir. Again, I believe it was, but I can't highlight any particular circumstances. Currently, the government does not keep a record of such activity. Our model of government is that each minister is responsible for their own policy areas, so we don't keep a central record of that at the moment, but that's something I intend to address, sir.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Would the Chief Minister advise if he's aware what training or accountability mechanism exists for officers to apply this tool?
Chief Minister.
I'm not sure of the exact detail of the training, but I can get that information for the Deputy if she requires it. Thank you.
Supplementary. Deputy Jern.
Thank you, sir. And Deputy Gardner asked a similar question to me, but I would like to ask the Chief Minister if he would be able to commit to publishing the results of equality impact evaluations when they're carried out on major policy or legislative proposals like the budget, so the public and scrutiny can see how decisions are affecting groups, especially because at the moment there seems to be nothing on the website that even indicates equality impact evaluation tools are carried out.
Chief Minister.
I can't see a problem with that. I would like to discuss that with officials and colleagues, but I think that's something we can aim to do, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary. Final supplementary. Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. And the Chief Minister will be aware of the open letter that came from Sir Optimus International Jersey branch, making reference to specifically gender equality impact assessments. Would the Chief Minister commit to communicating with that group and the work that the government is doing so they can be reassured and, if necessary, ongoing regular communication and take into account their concerns and views?
Thank you, sir. I thought the government had been in communication, but I shall review that to make sure the appropriate procedure is followed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Minister. Question 10, Deputy Renner will put to the Chief Minister. Deputy Renner.
Further to the Fiscal Policy Panel annual report's recommendation regarding reductions in the grant to the Social Security Fund, will the Chief Minister explain why his government did not bring forward the 2026 actuarial review before committing to such reductions in the proposed budget 2026-29? And will he also explain why he is confident that long-term spending increases in the budget will be sufficiently funded?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. As the Deputy know, the previous full actuarial review was published in 2023. It would not have been realistic or practical to bring forward the 4-year periodic full actuarial review as part of this annual budget. So the annual budget is developed over roughly a 6-month period. It takes roughly a year, sometimes a little more than that, to complete the full periodic actuarial review of the Social Security Fund. I am confident that the priority areas identified in the budget to support vital services such as health and children's services can be funded in the long term. For example, so I fully agree, and I am on record as this government from taking office, that previous growth in the public sector is not sustainable. And we not only need to work to continue to curb the growth, which we have done, we need to start working to reverse the growth in certain areas, whilst protecting the most important services. As a deputy, I'm sure we'll agree this work needs to be done thoughtfully, but it must be done, sir. It's not something that can be done in a year in a single budget. It's something, given the challenges, the financial challenges we have faced and largely inherited on the back of COVID, sir, it needs to be something carefully thought through and planned. As the deputy also knows, this government has been having a number of not only ministerial workshops, but states members' workshops to start understanding our future challenges to guide that piece of work. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yes, please, sir. So the FPP had 5 recommendations in their report, including not using Pillar 2 income for day-to-day spending, rebuilding reserves, and not cutting the social security grant without an actuarial valuation. Does the Chief Minister intend to follow any of the FPP recommendations?
Yes, of course we do, sir, and we're considering the FPP report very carefully currently. The FPP panel is of huge importance, and we value their advice and guidance, sir. So we'll certainly be using that, not just now, but well into the future.
Joseph.
Would the Chief Minister agree with the remarks of the Treasury Minister? Would the Chief Minister agree with the remarks of the Treasury Minister that one of the challenges that the government has, and indeed the Treasury Minister said, is that the powers of the Treasury Minister in not actually having their budget brought forward to the Assembly and requiring multiple year allocations is at the heart of the problems that he is trying to deal with in a budget which is the Council of Ministers and not the Treasury Ministers? Would he agree with his Treasury Minister's views on the importance to put back those powers so that we can get some deficit reduction and deal with our black hole?
Chief Minister.
Well, in principle, I would, sir. In practice, I feel the government works collaboratively when we develop the budget together. But as somebody famous once said, I don't mind who runs a country, put me in charge of the money and I will control everything. And there's an element of course, truth about that. What I am sure about is whatever we decide upon in ministerial powers, is this Assembly needs to work collectively in the future to start steering our finances in a more sustainable position, sir.
Supplementary?
I'm grateful for the Chief Minister's response, and would he undertake, and would it be helpful for a member to bring forward a proposition to do what I asked the Treasury Minister, which is, will the government bring forward, before the next election, a comprehensive plan to deal with the structural deficit in terms of options? There are only 3 ways, and would he agree? It's either reducing spending, increasing the economic growth, or increasing taxes, and that is a choice that needs to be spelt out. There's no free money. Would you agree to bring forward what those difficult decisions are going to be required by the next Assembly on the back of his discussions with members?
Yes, and I'm wondering if Deputy Joseph wasn't listening to the scrutiny hearing last week where we discussed some of this issue in depth. I know the Treasury Minister is currently considering this in discussions. This, as I said on the back of my original answer to Deputy Renniff, we talked about workshops we're having as an Assembly. And I committed at the scrutiny hearing, and I do it again now, that we will be producing what I've referred to as an end of term a report, and that will include some proposals, if you like, a blueprint for the next government and future governments on how we might start to change our financial fortunes given the challenges we face. We intend to do that in collaboration with members. We have another States Members workshop planned for February where we can come out with a document that we can be in broad agreement. So this is not just a government issue, this is an assembly issue. We're all in it together and we have to find the right solutions.
Debbie Gardner.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister, in his answer, rightly stated that the review takes every 3 years when we have the standard approach. Also, Chief Minister mentioned that it will take around a year to do full review to understand the health of the fund. When we are taking into consideration that 20 million cut into the grant was agreed by the States Assembly a year ago, and for 2025, government requesting extra 50 million not paying into the grant, would the Minister agree that actually the government had opportunity to commence this review a year ago, that currently Assembly would have all details to make an evidence-based decision?
Chief Minister.
I'm not sure I would agree with that. I mean, hindsight is, of course, a wonderful thing, and perhaps if we could turn back the clock a year, knowing what we know now, I'm sure the Social Security Minister would have commissioned that review earlier. But I would remind members that she has commissioned a review due by June next year to provide the next government with comprehensive advice on the long-term future of the fund, including contribution levels, reserves, intergenerational equity or fairness amongst generations, and of course a review of the formula, because we know the current formula, I don't believe is longer fit for purpose given the change in circumstances. And that partly goes to back to the original question by Deputy Reniff about how we make it sustainable in the future.
Supplementary?
Sure. Thank you, Chief Minister. Thank you for the Chief Minister. Taking into consideration that we have a reduced income and we have higher number of aging population and more spending on the pension, did the Council of Ministers prepare contingency plan if the review coming back and stating actually it's dangerous strategy?
Chief Minister.
I'm sorry, sir, I just got distracted last bit. Could the Deputy just repeat that last part of that question?
Yes, Deputy Gardner.
Taking into consideration that we have reduced income and we have higher spend on pension due to the increase in aging population, what contingencies plan, if any, Council of Ministers prepared if the review coming back with status that it's dangerous strategy and it's not that healthy as it looks now?
Well, sir, all the projections and all the advice we have received right back from the 2023 full actuarial review indicates that won't be the case. But that is one of the reasons why the Social Security Minister has commissioned this review for June of next year that will provide comprehensive advice in relation to contribution levels, how we use the fund, its reserves, the formula we use for supplementation.
So my question was about contingency plan, if any was prepared.
About a contingency plan, if one was prepared.
So as I've said before, we didn't. I mean, the contingency plan we have is the reserve itself, which is very, very strongly funded, and there was no indications that fund wasn't going to remain strong. In fact, the current forecast now, which are conservative, I believe, are forecasting the fund to continue to grow to 2.9 billion by the end of the government plan period. I hope that answers the question, sir.
Deputy Balash.
Sir, I didn't hear from the Chief Minister a real explanation as to why he was confident that long-term spending increases in the budget would be sufficiently funded. And as Deputy Ossoff indicated, it can only be as a result of reducing spending, increasing growth, or increasing taxes. Which of those is it going to be?
Chief Minister.
I did say so. I apologise if the Deputy ever didn't make it clear. In my original response to Deputy Rennes, I said I fully agreed with the FPP, and I'm on record as saying, as this government is on record of acknowledging since taking office, that the growth, levels of growth and the cost of the public sector is unsustainable, and we need not only to continue working to curb the growth, we need to reverse some of the growth. Work is currently ongoing, as members who have attended the workshops will know, to review current government structures to make them more productive, to avoid a repetition. So, and yes, I do agree. The way to make ourselves financially sustainable into the future is by increasing our income, growing the economy, examining revenue streams, reducing costs, sir. And I suggest the solution will be a blend of those, sir, but I have full confidence this island can achieve that and continue to be financially secure into the future.
Supplementary. Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister agree that holding a reserve fund does not equal a contingency plan, and a contingency plan generally is a plan to deal with all eventualities or events that do not go to plan?
I somewhat disagree, sir. The whole reason that we have reserves for is to deal with unexpected crises and circumstances, just as we utilised our short-term cyclical reserves to deal with COVID. In relation to the Social Security Fund, sir, a recent actuarial advice and the 2023 full actuarial review stated the fund in an extremely strong position. It had grown since its inception, sir, way ahead of expectations. It was due to run out in 2035, sir. Now it's projected to go through as it is until 2066, sir. So we do not run contingency plans for every budget and every circumstance, sir, but I do suggest that the reserves are to deal with unexpected circumstances, sir.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. If, as the Chief Minister just said, this is an unexpected crisis equal to that of COVID, would he kindly set out to the Assembly? I'm afraid, sorry to the Treasury Minister, but that is just what he said. When will he be setting out to this Assembly and to the public the cause of that unexpected crisis and what his plan is to deal with it?
Chief Minister.
I did not suggest we had an unexpected crisis in any way, shape or form, sir. We presented a budget that balanced the books. Every member knows, including the former Chief Minister, that we have challenges ahead, financial challenges, based on current circumstances. I was referring to the crisis which was COVID and how we dealt with it. We do not have a crisis now, but we have to be mindful of the challenges coming our way, sir, and we need to work together as an Assembly to deal with them.
Final supplementary, Deputy Rennes.
Thank you, sir. I was pleased to hear that the Chief Minister does intend to follow recommendations from the FPP, but I am intrigued. Exactly which of the 5 recommendations will the government be following? There were 5 of them. Identify which one.
I will do so with the greatest of pleasure, sir, when we have considered them all very carefully in the context of our budget.
Question 11, Deputy Andrews will put to the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what consideration, if any, has been given to the introduction of a corporate social investment allowance scheme to permit companies that donate funds towards preschool education and childcare to claim a tax allowance? And if no such consideration has been given, why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Deputy for his question. That's an interesting question. No consideration has been given to the specific issue, as it has not been raised with me until now. I'm not aware of similar allowances operating in other jurisdictions. Most companies in Jersey, in any event, are taxed at 0% and therefore would not benefit from any new allowance. Providing an allowance, it would only benefit a relatively small number of companies that pay tax at 10 or 20%, would create a fiscal advantage from which many islanders would not benefit. The 2026 budget includes proposals to provide 15 hours of free childcare for 2 to 3-year-olds. I believe that this is a more appropriate and effective way to support islanders with the cost of childcare. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. Does the Treasury Minister not agree with me that part of corporate social responsibility is about providing some social good back to the community? And obviously with so many parents who are struggling with the cost of preschool education and childcare, would it not be feasible to at least explore this as a potential option to try and lower fees for parents? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Sir, as I say, most companies would not benefit from an allowance scheme. If you're paying tax, if your tax rate is 0%, and allowance is of no benefit. Most companies, very, very many companies in this island, do have excellent corporate social governance models, and they do contribute to a wide range of good causes. To suggest that some people should have tax allowances because they contribute to preschool education, and others who contribute to other very good causes like sport or older people or cancer charities should not get an allowance, is a very, very difficult thing to achieve. The best way to provide support is to target it where it is most needed, and just to give big businesses tax allowances to put money on an ad hoc basis into childcare when government is extending childcare to 2 to 3-year-olds, and when we already have the nursery fund, NEF, which also provides childcare to families. I don't think this is really an appropriate way forward. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister not agree that childcare is not just a good cause, but in fact essential infrastructure that allows parents to contribute to the economy, and that were there any mechanisms whereby businesses could provide support to their employees with childcare, that government should support this, and has this ever been considered?
Minister.
Sir, businesses that pay for provision of childcare for their employees can claim a 100% deduction in their accounts. It would likely result in a taxable benefit in kind on the employee, other than where the employer provides creche facilities, which is an exempt benefit in kind. New tax allowances can only be introduced when there is a very clear evidentiary basis as to how much it would support will it actually provide the support. Tax allowances are not always the best way of putting money into an economy, particularly not at a business level, and to ask people to support. Businesses can provide, will see tax benefit if they provide childcare. That is already there. But if somebody is given something by their employer, that it's only fair that that is then treated as a taxable benefit in kind. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary. Supplementary, Deputy Doublé? No? Deputy Joseph.
So very briefly, I wonder whether the Minister would encourage Deputy Andrews to visit the offices of Jersey Finance, of which there will be a number of organisations that do provide childcare, and in answering his questions with her responsibilities of financial services, that he would agree that he raises a good point, but raising understanding about what financial services companies need and are already doing, with or without tax allowance, would be helpful in order to progress what the Deputy is trying to do, which is everybody wants to have more better affordable childcare, and financial services do it already. Would she agree?
Minister.
Sir, I'm simply not in a position to comment on what businesses, financial services or otherwise do in the island in terms of childcare. There are benefit in kind arrangements, there are rules about tax deduction. Childcare is the provision of childcare as a matter of policy. It's not something that sits with Treasury. We simply provide the funding for it if this is what the Assembly wants to do. But can I just go back to the theme of the debate? Where is the money coming from? If you want to provide more childcare, find the funding source. Government is working on expanding childcare. We are working on a budget that balances the books and provides that childcare, and we cannot pluck things out of the hat without very careful consideration. Do we put money into childcare, or do we take money out of reserves, or do we put up taxes? These are the hard decisions that this Assembly has got to make. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
And would a meeting with Jersey Finance to explain those matters be helpful to the Deputy in the Treasury Minister's view?
Minister.
Sir, I am sure Jersey Finance would be happy to speak to the Deputy, or indeed any Deputy who wanted to go and discuss with them the challenges that the financial services industry are facing, like other businesses in the island. And even people working in financial services, I am quite sure Jersey Finance will tell you that that is a frequent theme that they find. Even in financial services, people are concerned about the cost of childcare and the cost of housing. Those are issues across the island, regardless of industry. I'm very sure Jersey Finance would be happy to discuss that, but I think we have to reflect that those are issues affecting all sectors of our community. Thanks.
Final supplementary, Deputy Andrews.
No, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Question 12, Deputy War will put to the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy War.
Thank you, sir. I'm conscious of the time as well at 10:57 with 3 minutes to go. So
We'll let you know when we're...
Okay, sure. Further to concerns raised this year by the Director of Mental Health regarding the practices of prescribing medicinal cannabis for islanders with serious mental health problems, and given that, according to the cannabis-based products for medicinal use dispensing audit, 6% of Jersey's working population received a prescription compared to just 0.05% in England. Will the Minister explain what actions he is taking in this area to protect islanders' mental health?
Minister. Minister, can you hear me?
Sorry, sir, I'd not lifted my microphone. So we're currently taking a number of steps to ensure the protection of islanders' mental health in this regard. Firstly, Health and Care Jersey have recently introduced the digitised reporting of dispensing data, allowing for the first time reporting on data up to the previous quarter. This enables an up-to-date understanding of prescribing levels and trends. We're also engaging with the primary care body and cannabis prescribers to work towards digitally connecting patient records between the two parties, which, if completed, will be much more efficient than the current arrangement of the prescriber having individually to contact the patient's GP to request the relevant patient information. I think the current situation demonstrates very clearly, sir, the need for the Assembly to support the funding required for health digitisation at the forthcoming budget. Finally, I've also determined that medical cannabis prescribing should be further controlled in law, and work is currently underway to define these controls. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All the clocks in here are wrong, of course, isn't it? Mine is more wrong than anyone else's. Supplementary?
Yes, certainly, sir. I'll go ahead with this one. So this in connection with answer to my written question 391/2025. The Minister provided a figure of, for 2024, prescriptions of 53,477 prescriptions for 4,000 patients. This equates to 13.4 prescriptions per patient. So this is over 100% increase year on year. Could the Minister explain that differential?
We're going to pause now and invite members to stand in remembrance of those who gave their lives in conflict so we can enjoy the freedoms we enjoy today. Thank you, members. Minister.
I'm sorry to be a nuisance, so I think it would be helpful, certainly for me and perhaps for members, if the Deputy would be kind enough to read that question again so that I can provide an accurate answer, sir. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Certainly, sir. It was a response to my written question 391/2025 for the number of medicinal cannabis patients in 2024. What I want to understand was the figure he gave in his answer was 53,477 prescriptions to 4,000 patients. That equates to 13.4 prescriptions per patient. The previous year, that was 5.8 prescriptions per patient, and the previous year before that was 4.3 prescriptions per patient. Can the Minister just explain why we've seen this extraordinary increase in prescriptions per patient?
Minister.
It'll probably come as no surprise to the Deputy that I haven't really got a great deal of data to be able to back up what I may say, and I think that data gathering is going to be crucial for us to resolve what I think has become something of a problem. I don't think I'm sharing any secrets, or I'm going to. This will come as a surprise to anybody. But we find ourselves in a situation where we've legalised medical cannabis without doing. Previous Assembly has legalised medical cannabis before doing the correct amount of background work, and I led to believe that we're in a situation where somebody who wants or requires medical cannabis can go around to various prescribers during the course of a month and get a month's supply from those various suppliers. It's a very unhealthy situation indeed, and that's why we must work at great speed to put that straight, sir.
Deputy Sadio.
Could I ask the Minister, is the prescription of cannabis any different to other drugs like opioids, and is there anything stopping patients from going round to multiple doctors, GPs, to get multiple opioids or other prescription tablets issued to them? Or is it just a problem that affects cannabis medication?
To the best of my knowledge, this is confined to cannabis. And as I say, that I can certainly check that up. I don't want to speak out of turn, but that's my understanding.
Supplementary?
I'd be surprised. Yeah, I'm not sure how that would be the case. I mean, I'm sure I could go to multiple GPs and get different prescriptions for different drugs, but
I don't.
So that's not my question, though.
Your question,
if I can ask
yes.
Thank you. Sorry, there's a slight delay. The question really is: does the Minister accept that medicinal cannabis does have a place in the topography of medication in Jersey? That it is an effective medication for many hundreds of people in the island for different conditions, and that actually a framework for the responsible prescribing of the drug is going to be welcome.
Yes, the latter part I can agree with wholeheartedly. I just think I probably need to correct the assertion that you can go to lots of GPs and get re-prescribed the same thing. And this is probably too complex to go into here, but the GPs have got a patient record system where all of the GPs are signed up to, and they've got all right protocols in place to share that information between themselves. When they come to share with third parties, the governance and audit requirements change quite dramatically, and that's the work that we're currently undertaking at the moment. And it runs a lot more complicated than certainly I expected, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But I just want to assure members that we're doing that work, and we've engaged with a lot of very capable people in order to undertake it. So hopefully we can make very real progress over the next 12 months.
Deputy War, final supplementary.
Sorry, sir, I did have my light on.
Oh, sorry, Deputy Coles. Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister confirm what data is collected in response to the reasons why cannabis prescriptions are being issued?
No, not to my knowledge. I'm sure the data exists, but whether that can be centralised at this point in time, I doubt it.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister agree that this data might be crucial before deciding next steps in any sort of regulation around prescribing of cannabis, so we actually understand the reasons why people are being prescribed in the first instance?
Minister.
As I say, the emphasis on our part is making sure we've got all the right structures in place to gather all of the data that we need. And that's where our focus is at the moment. So I certainly hope that helps to answer the question.
Deputy Ward, final supplementary.
Yes, sir. So I'm told that people who are getting prescriptions, because of the expense, are actually getting a prescription, then selling half of that to somebody else in order to raise funds for their prescriptions. Can the Minister confirm if this is happening?
Minister.
I have got no direct evidence of that, but in the same way as that information has reached Deputy Moore, it's also reached me. I don't mind saying I think we're in a very unsatisfactory place at the moment, and I don't mind saying either. I don't think that's through any fault of ours. However, I do want members to rest assured that as I said before, we've got some really good people working on this, and we're working at speed to try and resolve the problem, because it really is a problem, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Question 13, Deputy Gardner will put to the Minister for Education and Lifelong Learning. Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Further to his response to written question 401/2025 and his decision not to extend the clinical component grant to students studying in a key skills shortage areas such as paramedic science, occupational pharmacy, physiotherapy, will the Minister advise what assessment, if any, he has made of impact of this decision may have on Jersey's ability to train and retain homegrown professionals in those fields?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for her question. So the original proposition to extend the clinical grant to more subjects didn't include any evidence to show the named subjects are areas of skill shortage or that they are the most urgent skills gaps on the island. As amended, I was required to review the scope of the clinical courses allowance for related subjects, including the ones mentioned in the question. The decision is not to rule out including other subjects in the future for an additional grant, but the review found that adding a few subjects without proper analysis won't solve the issue of extra costs. It also found a fixed grant wouldn't necessarily give the right level of support because extra costs vary a lot between subjects. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. The Minister mentioned that the flat core rate could lead to either under or overfunding for some students. But this is true that almost for every element of our higher education grant system, including tuition and maintenance grant. Why then, in this the only area where the concern has been used as a reason for inaction, when it directly affects professionals that the island urgently needs to train and retain?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. First of all, P12 was a number of actions to be taken, I think on my second week in the role, that was passed on to me. It had to be reviewed so that I could make the decisions appropriately. So I think we're equating things that are not equatable in terms of paying student fees, paying maintenance grants, etc., with additional funding for clinical costs across a number of subjects. I would also say, sir, it's unclear on what basis the conclusions have been reached that the subjects listed represent key shortage skills. So in 2024-2025, there are 2,569 vacancies advertised across professional, scientific and technical activities, human health and social work activities. 2 of those were paramedic titles, for example, sir. So we have looked at key skills, and I have made the decision that we will, once we gather specific data, try and make specific cost payment to support as appropriate as the Deputy suggests, and I agree with that, so we get the best skills on the island and keep those skills here, sir.
Deputy Renouf.
Yes, can I clarify from what the Minister has said that he currently, and that list he's just the example he just gave, that he does not think that there are currently skill shortages in any of the listed items in this question?
Minister.
No, sir. What I'm saying is we don't have the clear
data to be making a specific payment to specific areas. Skills Jersey has worked closely with the economy team and spoken directly to industry, and that has produced a whole range of specific skills shortages for the island, which we are trying to address. So the other thing is around these types of areas, podiatry, etc., a reference is made to NHS payments that are made. They are very different than our students because we are not part of that NHS payment. One of the things to look at in the future, and I would want to explore with the Minister for Health and others, is whether there are specific health courses, the element of education that is paid for in Jersey, so tuition fees and maintenance grants are paid for in Jersey, thus not putting our students into £50,000–60,000 worth of debt. Is there a need for health to support specific health needs as we move forward? So I would be open to that. But at the moment, sir, that is not the best way to spend a blanket amount of money.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you, sir. In his answer, the Minister referred, I think, to consultation he'd done with Skills Jersey and that had produced a list where there were skill shortages. Can he therefore confirm whether any of the ones listed in this question were on that list that came out of his consultation?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. No, sir, I don't think they were, but let's not have a world of absolutes here. We want to support our health service as best as possible in funding the right type of education. If additional grants are needed to support people in those clinical areas, we are looking at the best way to support that. I think we need to move it away from the essential skills gap and look at it about the continuing professional development for this island, particularly so as we may actually in the end build a new hospital and have new facilities for our people to work in. So that would be important, putting the money in the right places at the right time. Just because they're not recognised on a skill shortage list doesn't mean we don't do anything about it, but we have to do it. And I have to say so, I've tried to do this throughout the response to P12, to take a measured, considered approach and make the changes gradually over time in the appropriate areas. And I think that's what I have done, sir.
Deputy Dublé.
Thank you, sir. The Minister may have just alluded to this, actually, but I wondered whether, where a subject isn't on the list, is there scope for individuals to appeal directly to the Minister or for ministerial discretion in this area where they can demonstrate that there is a shortage of key skills locally?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, and that's exactly I think, I'd say to the Deputy, sir, that's exactly the point. We have to look around our economy and around our skills, particularly in our service skills, as to whether there does arise a need and what we can do to support that. I will remind the Assembly, sir, that we do pay tuition fees and maintenance here. That's a significant difference to training in the UK, where you end up £50,000, £60,000, £70,000 worth in debt before you even start your career. So we do have a good starting point. Clinical funding is paid to some areas already. If we can extend and use that limited pot of money, so we have to be realistic about what we're spending for the right areas, that would be great. I do think that if there are specific health things, like in the NHS, it's the NHS that pay that chunk of it, and it is education element in the UK, I don't know what they call it now, that offer the grants and loans. We will pay the education part, and working together, I think that is the best way forward to support what we need on the island in those specific areas.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you, sir. Does the Minister have any examples of any recent appeals, if he's able to give those? And where there are perhaps multiple appeals that are in the same area, is the policy able to flex to take into account any patterns that emerge that the Minister identifies?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, there is always as the Deputy will know from her time, policy is always difficult to flex. There are not huge numbers of appeals that come forward in this area, and we will try to look at them appropriately. However, sir, I think whenever one bends the flex in the policy, one opens up. I see the Constable Groville saying, mouthing the words "can of worms," and I wouldn't quite call it that, but he's right. But what we want to do is, and with the way in which we allocate student finance now, is a lot easier to track where people are, so we can be much more focused on where those areas might be needed. But as I say, sir, we have to look specifically at what those skills are and what the needs are. Just one thing, sir, I would say, for example, a blanket payment doesn't work because it may well be that one person with a clinical requirement is to travel 50 miles and do a certain number of things for a number of hours, which is very expensive. Others may be working in an experience within the hospital in which they're training, which is a lot easier and a lot cheaper. One blanket payment will not work, so we have to be very specific in what we do.
Deputy Garner, final supplementary.
Sure. Would the Minister agree that while a perfect formula may take time to develop, an interim allowance could be still introduced even on the modest or pilot basis? And if he discussed with the Minister for Health and Social Services potential co-funding or jointly designed clinical placement support scheme for those related professionals to avoid penalising students if these essential areas, once the work of collecting evidence is continued?
Minister. Thank you, sir. So no, I don't agree with blanket payments would be the right thing to do in that way. I don't agree with the word penalise either. We're not penalising anybody. We are funding tuition fees. We are funding maintenance. There is clinical components paid for some things. However, I will be more than happy to speak to the Health Minister to look at if there are areas in which we can work together where there is a specific need on the island, particularly when people are coming back to the island with those skills, if we can support that, of course. But blanket payments simply do not work. They become, I think, sir, a token gesture towards making things better, and they don't solve the problem in the long term. And we need to start solving problems in the long term, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Question 14, Deputy Jeune will put to the Chief Minister. Deputy Jeune.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister advise what specific investments will be made via the Jersey Capital Investment Fund under the Investing in Jersey 2026 to 2050 programme in order to deliver the initial focus of affordable family housing across all ages and income levels?
Chief Minister.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Family-sized affordable housing is the cornerstone of Jersey's long-term prosperity, which is why it has been prioritised within the CSP and the Investing in Jersey programme 2026 to 2050. While the Jersey Capital Investment Fund is not currently anticipated to make direct investments into housing, it will play a vital role in enabling housing developments by supporting essential infrastructure projects. For example, this includes investment in such areas as drainage systems, something, sir, we have neglected for many years, but I'm pleased to say work is progressing rapidly, sir, and that will lead to the delivery of sustainable housing and affordable housing, sir. A range of other funding mechanisms are probably better suited to support direct investment in housing. These include, for example, the Housing Development Fund, the Dwelling Houses Loan Fund, and expanded financing support through Andium Homes and the States of Jersey Development Company. In addition, extensions to the First Step scheme and other targeted initiatives are currently being considered. The scale and structure of these investments are being developed as part of the broader commitment to enhancing housing affordability and expanding access to affordable family housing, sir, as the Deputy asked, across all ages and incomes. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. So could I just confirm with the Chief Minister that, and maybe, I believe he said that in his answer, but if you could confirm that Andium Homes, the States Jersey Development Company, or private developers would or would not have access to any of the Capital Investment Fund when it is set up?
Chief Minister.
I think that's a difficult question to answer because first we need the States Assembly approval in the budget to develop the fund. We're working on how that fund will operate, so it's a difficult question to answer. I'm keen the Investing in Jersey programme and the fund helps deliver housing, of course. The investment by the fund in infrastructure for drainage will, of course, impact and support private sector as well as Andium Homes and SOJDC, sir.
Deputy Kovacs.
Thank you, sir. As the Chief Minister mentioned, the First Step scheme, and given the success of it, but the absence of funding for it next year, How will the Chief Minister work with the Minister for Housing to ensure this capital investment fund supports similar affordability opportunities for first-time buyers?
Chief Minister.
Well, as I said, sir, it's not envisaged that the capital investment fund, that's more of an infrastructure fund aimed at protecting, ring-fencing monies, capital for our essential infrastructure, sir, but rather a range of other funding mechanisms, such as the very successful First Step scheme. But I know the Housing Minister and his officials are considering other initiatives that will help get families into family-sized affordable housing.
Supplementary. Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. I think the original questioner might be confused by the answer because the Investing in Jersey programme says under the purpose of the Capital Investment Fund that it will ring-fence the required annual funding for housing, and that is noted separate to infrastructure such as drains and regeneration. And the final sentence on that page says it will support said drainage infrastructure and affordable housing delivery. Could again the Chief Minister then just confirm for the avoidance of doubt that perhaps this is not the correct and most up-to-date version of the purpose of the fund that members will debate during the budget?
I can confirm that is the correct and up-to-date version, and I think it can be read in different ways. The fund, sir, will support the provision of new housing predominantly by investing in infrastructure projects such as drainage. As I said before, we haven't ruled out it being used for more direct funding for housing, but we think that's not currently anticipated in the current thinking because we think there are better mechanisms for doing that, such as the First Step scheme and other initiatives which are currently being developed.
Supplementary. Deputy Dublé.
Thanks, sir. Does the Chief Minister agree with me that whilst the existing schemes that help first-time buyers and those who wish to rent are excellent schemes, that we aren't doing enough to help support struggling families who already own sometimes very, very modest properties that they have outgrown, and because they're already on the property ladder, they aren't able to access these schemes? And what will be done to help those families, please?
I completely agree, sir. We need to do more. We'd like to be doing more, but of course we are constrained by the money available to us to put into those schemes, as members are fully aware of the challenges we face currently. And that is why the Housing Minister and his team are working on other initiatives that build upon the First Step scheme. And we will, and I hope this Assembly in the years ahead, will continue to prioritise how we fund those schemes, sir, because, as I say, they are an important investment and the cornerstone of Jersey's long-term prosperity, sir. And members will have noticed from the media yesterday, and I welcome the debate and the work of the new Youth Assembly. It's still the #1 concern for young people in Jersey, and we have to work harder to turn that around, sir, and encourage young people to stay here.
Supplementary.
Thank the Chief Minister for his answer. Is there a timeline available for the new work in this area, please?
Chief Minister.
That's a question we'll have to direct, or I'll check with the Housing Minister on what their current timelines are looking like for these initiatives, sir. But I would reiterate it's a key priority for this Assembly and the Government, sir, and we need to move faster.
Deputy Joseph.
Thank you, sir. In reference to this stream of questions on housing supply and the issue that islanders are facing, the FPP on page 23, section 4.2 says, policy missteps may worsen housing supply or delay stabilisation. Question 25 says the second home surcharge has an unclear impact on affordability. There is no evidence it has materially improved access for first-time buyers. Does he said he agreed with everything the FPP said. Does he agree with this disconnected policy, it seems, by our economic advisors like Sir John Cunliffe?
So firstly, I did not say I agreed with everything the FPP said. I welcome their valuable advice. There's a subtle difference there. I presume the Deputy is talking about the stamp duty surcharge. Yeah. Well, I think I supported in the budget a slight reduction in that for second homes, sir. And as I said, there's no real evidence that it is helping or it's not helping, but that's something we need to find out more about. So we like to try and make decisions based on evidence. But the key priority is delivering more affordable homes so young people can get into affordable family homes, stay in Jersey and have families. So.
Supplementary.
So the question is about housing and the capital fund that the deputy asked. Can he absolutely say that he is not going to be a chief minister putting forward a plan that is going to be relying upon states' resources, as heard by the Treasury Minister, and he said scarce resources, as opposed to what should be happening, which is private capital in not only first-time buyers not requiring state subsidy, but the market operating, and also private capital in the private sector rental to avoid further drains on the public finances. Does he agree in the importance of private capital and do everything in this budget to do that?
Of course, sir. I agree that private capital and private housing is absolutely essential, sir. But I also understand the housing market over the years, when we haven't had surcharges on second properties, hasn't really worked for young people. And so we need to bear that in mind. And the action we need to take, we need to make sure, first and foremost, will benefit, first and foremost, young islanders or islanders across all ages and incomes, as the deputy asked, in getting into affordable family housing. Second homes for people is important. It's important investment into the rental sector. But for me, sir, that comes slightly behind young people getting into family homes. Thank you.
Deputy Chair, final supplementary.
Thank you, sir. And bringing the question back to the Capital Investment Fund specifically, we've heard in our budget hearings with the two of our ministers that there is focus on projects in the future coming out of the capital investment funds, and I'd like to hear from the Minister, if the Chief Minister could advise how access to the funding will be prioritised against other priorities. We've also heard from potential Minister for Education and Lifelong Learning needing some of that funding in the future. So how will it be prioritised, and will this information be available to us ahead of any principal vote in the budget?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. It is envisaged that the Capital Investment Fund will predominantly ring-fence and support essential capital projects. Having said that, it's not ruled out it might not be used for more direct investment, for example, in housing or private sector housing. I need an update from the Treasury. They're working on. I would like to see the draft legislation, or part of it at least, available before the budget debate. But if the fund is approved, then shortly afterwards, in the first quarter of next year, that piece of legislation will come forward, and at that time, we will have worked out and considered how that fund will start, the detail of running that fund, and of course, that will be part of the important states member meeting we're due to have in February, because I'd like to seek states members' views on that. So, having said that, once a fund is established and operational, sir, it will be within the means of this Assembly as time goes by to amend how it's used, so in line with how circumstances demand at that time.
Thank you, Chief Minister. Question 15, Deputy Ozef will put to the Minister for Housing. Deputy Ozef.
Thank you, sir. Further to the latest house price index, which stated that property turnover remained about 20% below the pre-pandemic levels, with a continuing fall in the private rental stock. Will the Minister advise whether, in his assessment, the housing market remains fragile, and that measures such as the second home stamp duty surcharge, combined with high interest costs and uncertainty, risk constraining recovery of the market?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. And listening to Deputy Ozef's question, I wonder if he read the same house price index report to me, because the one that I read shows a 26% increase in turnover since the previous quarter, a 55% increase since the same quarter last year. It also does not show a fall in private rental stock, let alone a continued fall, which is an unsubstantiated claim that the Deputy has previously made in this Assembly. What it currently shows is an increase in turnover without drastic increases in prices, and I think that's exactly the kind of recovery we wish to see.
What I do not want to see is a return to the old days where, whilst turnover was high, it was combined with completely unsustainable price increases, which left so many young people seeing home ownership move further and further out of reach for them, and where their only chances of living independently involve paying over half of their income towards a buy-to-let investor's mortgage instead. So I believe that under my agenda, we're heading in the right direction and we should stay on track.
Supplementary.
Sir, the housing price index confirms that the mixed adjusted average price of a dwelling has fallen by 12% over the last year. That is the sharpest annual drop since 2002. A three-bedroom house was originally 900 and it's down to 763. Turnover is down and there is widespread negative equity with those individuals. In terms of real terms fall, it's been 26%. Can I just ask the Minister, how far does he want the housing market to go? Because it's in free fall. We've never seen such numbers ever.
So I continue to wonder what parallel universe Deputy Osif lives in, because the house price index has just shown that turnover is on its way up, which is the direction that apparently he wishes to see, but it is not now coming with drastic price increases. Yes, sir, there was a drastic fall last year. That is what some might describe as a correction after years of completely unsustainable growth, but that has now stabilised. So we are heading in the right direction.
Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister consider that comparing housing market activity to immediately pre-pandemic levels may be comparing to an unsustainable period in housing turnover? And does he note that the same housing report shows that our housing market activity index, HMAI, is equal to 2016, which is not that long ago and actually may represent a more sustainable period in our market?
Thank you, sir. That was a very good question, and one I'm struggling to come up with a concise answer to. You might have to explain it in other terms for me to give a better answer.
Yes.
I'll have another go. Does the Minister think that actually housing market activity is at a good position, and when he compares to the long-term trends, we're in a more sustainable position than comparing to the very high volume turnover pre-pandemic?
So that sounds like a very sensible point, and what I would say, sir, is that turnover is just one piece of the puzzle here, that there's actually a lot more to it than just whether transactions are low or whether they're higher. It depends on a whole wide variety of factors. Where is that turnover focused? Is it investor-led? Is it first-time buyer-led? What's happening to prices at the same time? And using that as the sole metric of whether things are in a healthy state or not, I think is flawed. So I welcome his question now that I've understood it.
Final supplementary, Deputy Osif.
Sir, there is no escaping the fact that house prices are 26% lower in real terms, and I've done my mathematics. I do not live in a parallel universe. I know constituents who are now unable to sell their properties for anything like what they expected. Yes, we saw that there have been unsustainable increases in prices. I'm just asking kindly if the Minister is concerned with the plummeting house prices. 26% in real terms is enormous. And just how far is it going to go down before he's going to do something to address my constituents' concern about their inability to sell their houses with negative equity? And I remind him about the actual increases in interest rates, which have seen the monthly payments for homeowners in Jersey go up dramatically. Does he not recognise in any way that there is a problem in our housing market?
So what an insulting question to ask at the end, as he knows the entire foundation of my platform as Housing Minister has been to recognise the reality of hurt and pain caused to our community by our housing crisis for so many years under governments, including which he served in, that did not take the necessary action to resolve it. And that is a difference in this government, thankfully, sir. So what he said in that question about plummeting prices is now out of date, sir. That would have been correct to have said last year, but the latest house price index shows that that has stabilised. So I absolutely appreciate that a fall in house prices causes difficulties for some people in some situations, as it causes opportunities for other people in other situations. Now that that seems to have tailed off and is now stabilised, That, sir, provides us better foundations for moving forward, and I, sir, suspect, sir, that if we went by some of the policy suggestions that this deputy has proposed in the past, we would see disruption to that recovery that would lead us to going back to that unsustainable position in the past, and I would oppose that if he seeks to do so.
Thank you, Minister. That completes that period of questions. We now move to oral questions without notice. And the first period of questions are for the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. And the first question is from Deputy Chair.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what consideration his department has given to supporting small and local businesses affected by major roadworks and infrastructure projects? Has the Minister met with, or does he intend to meet with businesses impacted by current or planned road closures to understand the challenges they face and how the government could assist?
Minister.
I thank the Deputy for her question. This is, I think, a really important question, and I have engaged with some businesses who have experienced problems with regard to roadworks. I think it's an age-old question. It's not a new one, but I haven't engaged with the department or other departments, I have to say, and I think it is something we do need to do. I'd be very pleased to speak with the Infrastructure Minister about how we can work to make a more reasonable situation for businesses that are affected by long-term roadworks. I know, for instance, back in pre-COVID, about 2019, I know one business where at the end of the day, the owner or the principal person in that business closed down and left because of roadworks that went on for 6 months outside their business. And this was a hospitality business, and it couldn't withstand that sort of pressure. And whilst I appreciate it is very difficult, because I don't think the government is in a position to replace lost earnings, but maybe there are some other mechanisms whereby businesses can be compensated in some way. I think it's something that the government does need to look at.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir, and that's very comforting to hear that the Minister sees that this is something to be looked at. And could I just get the Minister's confirmation that that will be something that he'll be looking at shortly before the end of his term, and to accept that his department's responsibility to step up in some kind of practical or financial support and to look into this in the future.
Absolutely, so I can confirm that, and I'd be very pleased to play a role in ensuring that we find a solution, and as the Deputy says, this side of the elections.
Deputy Brenner.
Thank you, sir. I've asked a series of written questions concerning the planning obligation agreement regarding the operation of Strive, which his department was supposed to monitor. The POA said that 4,044 hours of free or supported sessions should be provided to community groups each year. Taking the year 2022 as an example, in response to written question 348, I was told there was no data. In response to a follow-up written question 380, a figure of 21,872 was provided. I was concerned by this answer, and rather than ask another written question, sought clarification from his chief officer, who provided a very different figure of 3,617. Then written question 405 gave yet another figure of 3,039. In other words, 4 separate answers to the same question. Can the Minister explain this fiasco and perhaps identify which of the answers provided is the right one?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Deputy for his question. I can't explain why that's the case, and I certainly wouldn't call it a fiasco because we're reporting on numbers of one particular business. I think fiasco needs somewhat of a larger situation to be occurring, but I do appreciate what the Deputy is saying about the inconsistency in the answers, and I will revert to my officers to understand why they have been providing inconsistent answers.
Supplementary.
Yes, sir. Does the Minister accept that such a contradictory sequence of answers might undermine trust in his department and make it very difficult to understand which answers we should take as being the correct ones?
Minister.
Sir, I wish never to undermine trust in my department or any other department, sir, and so obviously inconsistent answers don't help with regard to trust. But I must say, sir, that these are obviously figures that come from a third party. They aren't figures generated by government. And so there can be issues with the passing on figures from the third party to government. And I think, as the Deputy himself has identified, reporting on those figures was not always consistent in terms of being provided. And so I think there has probably been some retrospective looking for answers. This is my speculation, but this is likely, I think, to have occurred. So I will take that back to officers. I will remind them that it is important to make sure that they are consistent in their answers, and that obviously the reporting in this situation continues going forward in an appropriate manner.
Deputy Taddeo.
Thank you, sir. This is a follow-up question to a written question that I put this week about the cafe at the Elizabeth terminal, sir. Because I don't feel it's been answered completely explicitly, could I just ask for further clarification as to whether or not the current restaurant facility is open to non-travelling members of the public, so those who are landside, and if not, why not? And will there be steps in the future to make sure that those who are not travelling can go and use the pub facilities, the restaurant and the cafe facilities without needing to go through security if they're not travelling?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and thank the Deputy for his question. For the Deputy's information, as you can't see, I don't have the written question in front of me, but going from memory as to the answer that was provided, I recall the answer saying that vending machines were provided, and so access wasn't provided to landside passengers. I believe the Deputy could well be, am concerned about this. It is something that I actually had a family conversation about just a couple of weeks ago, because we were surprised that their access to the cafe from passengers who were not travelling was limited. Obviously, these are decisions made by Ports of Jersey and the port management, the harbour master, etc. They are not decisions made by government. But I will seek to understand why it is the case that it seems that landside passengers aren't able to access the cafe. I don't know the answer to that, but I will seek to find out.
Supplementary.
Yeah, does the Minister accept that vending machines are not an acceptable substitute for a cafe restaurant facility? And actually, anyway, when I went there last time, the vending machines were switched off. One couldn't even get a coffee. And that would he, and I welcome his sympathy in this area, would he take steps to see whether or not the cafe could, in short order, be made available to the non-travelling public? It used to be, I think people used to go up there for Sunday lunch, for drinks after work, and it seems that there could be some potential for the wider economy if that were to be the case again.
Minister.
Sir, yes, I thank the Deputy, and I will look into those matters. Thinking the situation through, I can understand that one of the issues for the cafe owner and Ports of Jersey would be that it is difficult to divide a cafe in two, per se, and so have one area for the land side and one area for the travelling side, the seaside. And I imagine it's as a result of that. I imagine that the Ports of Jersey have been trying to enhance the customer experience for people travelling, but at the same time it's very difficult to build a wall down the middle of the cafe and divide it in two, because obviously you cannot have a mixing of people who have passed through security with people who are not travelling and have not passed through security. But I have the same concerns as the Deputy, so I will definitely take that forward, sir.
Any more questions for this Minister? Deputy Brenner.
It's always good to have a reserve question. The Minister has stated that he is keen for the economy to feature more in planning decision-making, and to achieve this, he's asked for his department to be consulted regarding planning applications. Could I therefore ask whether his department puts in comments to planning applications? Are those the impartial views of expert civil servants, or are they influenced by the Minister, either directly or indirectly?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. It's very difficult to say whether indirectly, because there could be something I've said 3 weeks ago that an officer may or may not pick up on, so I cannot answer with regard to the indirectly part of it. From the directly side, I think it is the case that where I wish as Minister to write, I will write, and where officers write, they will write. And so, for instance, I know there was an issue of a letter from one of the Department of the Economy officers which turned up in the planning pack for, I believe, the planning committee. This is a few weeks ago. I didn't know that letter. I didn't know it was there. And so I think in the main, it is officers writing, and where I wish to write, I do. I have myself gone to the planning committee to make representations. I think that's entirely appropriate. And whilst I cannot say I have not seen every officer letter, I don't think I have seen the vast majority of them before they are sent.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. I'm reassured to hear that. I mean, the infrastructure department, for example, comment on drains. One expects that to be the view of officers, not the view of the minister. I think it's interesting that he referenced the recent appearance of a letter in regard to the recent application by Strive. There appeared to be two different views being expressed in the information that went to the planning committee. Can he explain how this came to be?
Minister.
So it's very difficult for me to comment on other people's correspondence, but I don't believe that two different views. I think you had one view which was much more nuanced and one view which wasn't. I think that's all that was there, but I think both views at the end of the day came to similar conclusions that economic benefit was to be gained from that development. I think there was an issue with, to my understanding, the officers did not know, the officer that wrote the letter, or not letter, it was an email. It was not, I believe, informed that it would be part of the public planning pack. And I think that's an issue, because officers should know if an email correspondence that they send to a colleague is going to be made public or not, sir, through that sort of forum. And so I think there is an issue around process in that regard.
Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. In my two written questions this week, I asked the Minister to confirm whether the restaurants at the harbour and at the airport accepted cash, and the answer confirmed that they didn't. Does the Minister think that it would be desirable in an ideal world for tourists in particular who come to Jersey and who are flying back home, going back home on the boat, should be able to spend Jersey pound notes to maybe buy their last coffee, bag of potatoes, etc. at the airport, and to not do that, allow them, that is a restriction on choice and potentially some lost revenue for those who might well want to spend their Jersey cash in the local economy before they leave.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. And I think the Deputy and I have quite similar feelings on the issue of cash, but am thwarted often in terms of practicality and cost to the provider or the service provider. And so whilst I'm open to the Deputy having a conversation with Ports of Jersey about whether they accept cash or not, and I'd be happy to be part of that conversation, I think it does have to be balanced off with the practicality and the costs ultimately to the business. Interestingly, I'm not convinced that tourists to Jersey necessarily use vast amounts of cash, though I don't have any data. I imagine that most people, when travelling now, tend to use cards, but that may be correct or incorrect. I don't know. That's speculation, perhaps.
Supplementary, Deputy?
Yes, sir. I'm reassured, I suppose, in the sense that the Minister might have similar views to me. I'm very much pro-choice in this matter, and I'm very much of the belief that either businesses choose or the public choose, and if the public are to choose, they need to have their rights to use cash protected. Could the Minister confirm whether that is his ultimate vision for the economy, whether he ultimately comes down on the side of businesses, saying that businesses should choose, which obviously includes choosing not to allow their customers to pay with cash, or should the choice fall down on the other side that the right to use cash should be somehow protected?
Minister.
Sir, I think that there should be a right to use cash. This is not government policy, this is personal thinking, but I am somewhat aware of the fact that cash costs a lot to process. And actually, if we are to ensure that there is a right to use cash, then somehow I think it would need, the cost of it would need to be agreed, or if not regulated, via the banking system, because I think that's where much of the cost of cash comes from. I think when it comes to public service providers, I think there is a greater onus on, should be perhaps a greater requirement for them to accept cash, because they are public service providers. And so it's something of an answer, but not of an answer. But I have huge sympathy with the idea that there should be a right to have cash, but I fear that the practicalities are running away with us quicker than the principle. So.
Thank you, Minister. That brings that period of questions to an end. We'll now move on to the second period of questions for the Minister for Treasury and Resources. And the first question is from Deputy Chair. Deputy Chair.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister for Treasury and Resources advise what she considers to be a sustainable level of borrowing for the Government of Jersey and how this is determined in the context of current fiscal forecasts and capital investment plans?
Minister.
Sir, I think the basic answer to that question, a sustainable level of borrowing, is a level of borrowing that you can afford. We are not in the business of trying to increase borrowing more than we absolutely have to. If we do have to borrow for some projects, we will do, but we will do it in a very careful and measured way. I would remind everybody that while Jersey does have some borrowing, and some of that borrowing is relative recently, it is still very much lower than many other countries in the world, at about 18% of GVA. According to the television this morning, the UK borrowing is just almost 100% of GVA, and their interest costs are part of the reasons why they're facing the difficulties they are, among many others. Borrowing, there is always a place for borrowing. We would rather not, but it will be done carefully and in a very considered manner. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, and thank the Minister for her answer. And if borrowing is to increase in a considerate manner, as the Minister has mentioned, how does the Minister expect the Government to meet future repayment obligations? For example, the current borrowing that is put in the budget for Fort Region, for example.
Minister.
Sir, thank you. As indicated, we don't borrow unless we have a repayment plan. Borrowing has its place. It's like everything else. Nobody pays cash for their house. Most people borrow to fund their house purchase. Many people will borrow to fund a car purchase, but you would generally not want to borrow for day-to-day revenue spending, and I certainly would not support borrowing for day-to-day revenue spending. But anytime we do borrow, it will be with a clear repayment plan that we know will work and that we know we can afford. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. The South Hill development by SOJDC, titled Westwood, is now open for interest for pre-sales. Will the Minister advise the latest update she has received from SOJDC on the pre-sales process and whether it is meeting the speed of uptake she and SOJDC forecast?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. That's a very specific question. All I know is that pre-sales launched on 6th of October and early signs are encouraging. There has been encouraging take-up, but I can't say any more than that. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister be prepared in future, not saying she wasn't expected to for this question, but for more questions on this? The Assembly did approve P88 to change the pre-sales and let agreements for commencement of development. And so if the Minister would be able to share progress on this, then the Assembly may have an idea as to how the market is moving, given this is a large development and we've all had a stake in actually changing the start of the development on this through P88.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. So I think I think if the Deputy is asking me to come to the Assembly every sitting and report on pre-sales for Westward, I think that would be a waste of our time. P88 was to confirm that construction would not start, I believe, till a certain level of sales had been reached. I am sure once the pre-sales have been reached and construction starts, we will make that will be made known to the Assembly or to the public, one way or the other, not least by the commencement of construction, which will not start without the pre-sales. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. Could I ask the Minister whether she believes enough is being done in terms of economic stimulus in this budget? If so, could you give some examples? But does she think that there are areas where more could be done to stimulate the economy and therefore to grow the pie, so to speak?
Minister.
Thank you. I thank the Deputy for his question. I think there is work happening in this budget. It is work that started, some of it is the work that started last year with the Better Business Support Package. There's 10 million available this year for various business stimulus packages and a further 10 million next year. I think we have agreed recently that to the extent there is any money left from this year, it will be pushed forward into next year's funding, but any money left next year will return, per our original agreement, to the Social Security Fund. So as well as the Better Business Support Package, we are also investing a lot of time and work on the competitiveness programme for the financial services sector. It will probably come as no surprise to you that I think financial services is clearly the biggest part of our economy, and we absolutely must protect it and promote it and make sure that it continues to thrive, and that particularly it continues to be able to compete in a very challenging global environment with other international finance centres. There is money in the budget for that programme, and that there has we've some very good work has already been done. The work is underway with extensive collaboration with the regulator, Jersey Finance, and stakeholders across industry. Industry itself seems to be very much on board with the progress, and I think there is a real sense of positivity around our financial services industry at the moment, and we hope that that will only continue as that work continues to develop under the leadership, particularly of Deputy Gorst. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary?
Supplementary,
please,
yes,
sir.
Deputy. Yes, please.
Thanks, sir. I welcome that answer, but could the Minister confirm whether she is of the opinion that maybe that we could have still given bigger budgets to the likes of Digital Jersey, Jersey Finance Limited, Visit Jersey, so those industry partners who are ultimately responsible for developing and bringing new business into the island? And would you give an assurance that if there is new money that becomes available, notwithstanding her comments already about the Better Business Support Packages, that any extra monies could be redirected to medium and longer term financial growth, which will ultimately hopefully benefit all of us?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. That takes us back into the realm of difficult decisions. Yes, we can invest money in those agencies. Where would you like that money to come from? Would you like us to cut some budgets elsewhere? There has been a very difficult balancing act this year to make sure that those agencies that have budgets to continue to perform. Equally, there are voices that say we need to do more to make sure they are operating efficiently and wisely for their budgets. They will be doing their part to promote the economy with Visit Jersey. I should also mention that there is funding in the marine and rural schemes, that there are a number of schemes in the economy as well supporting those agencies, and it is one of our continuing difficult decisions as to how funds are allocated. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Renouf.
Thank you, sir. The FPP says the budget is not prudent to take money from the Social Security grant in advance of a full actuarial review. Given that the review will not happen until next year, is the Minister a follower of the well-known Augustine prayer, please make me fiscally prudent, but not right away, and particularly not until after the next election?
Minister.
I am fiscally prudent. I would hope people would recognise that. But it comes back to, what would you like us to do? The Social Security Fund is very well funded, and the FPP comment that it was not prudent, they are talking about a temporary measure that has been done to ensure that we can invest in health, that we can invest in facilities for our most vulnerable children, and that we can produce additional childcare. And by producing additional childcare, we will have more people in work contributing to our economy and contributions to that fund and to tax revenues. The Social Security Fund is very healthy. Even if no more money went into it, it could pay pensions for over 7 years. There is no country that we are aware of has that level of funding, reserve funding for pensions. We know we need to, I think the FPP were even more blunt about the need to fill our other reserves. So it really comes back to, do you want services? Do you want us to continue providing health services and services for children? Or do you want us to not do those things? There are very difficult decisions. It was a decision that was made for this budget, and it is something that we will all have to review in the future as we consider how we spend and what we spend money on. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. I welcome the Minister's confirmation that the budget shoves all the big decisions on funding into the post-election period. And the FPP, of course, are seriously concerned about spending commitments that are not covered into the future. Does it concern her at all that she has the distinction of being the Treasury Minister that has triggered one of the most unusually critical set of recommendations from the FPP that we've seen?
Minister.
Sir, if I could go back to my comments earlier this sitting, it is not my budget. It is the Council of Ministers' budget, and the Council of Ministers took those difficult decisions. The FPP report is not a surprise. We know we want to put money into the Strategic Reserve and the Stabilisation Fund, and we have set out a plan to do that. The prior year basis debt will go into the Strategic Reserve this year, which will help bolster it. And I accept the FPP's comment that that is not a liquid debt, but it will become liquid over a period of time. We have a plan to use Pillar 2 revenues to bolster those reserves. We have a need, however, for short-term funding for health and children's services, and it is important that we provide that funding, and we have sought to do that. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Iyer.
Thank you, sir. Further to written question 412, may I ask the Minister what encouragement has she given to States of Jersey Development Company in regard to the International Finance Centre? Obviously, currently 3 of the finance buildings have been built, with 3 possibly to go. 1 has planning permission, IFC 2. How is she going to try to progress those buildings, and does she believe it's vital to the island economy that they are built? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Sorry, so I was trying to remember what question 412 is. I think it was the one about IFC 6. So I don't think I can say very much more than was set out in the answer to that question. It would be if I encouraged SOJDC to build a building for which they had no tenant and for which they would then have no income stream. That would not be fiscally prudent. We cannot have a building sitting there empty. The answer to the question made it clear that businesses make their own difficult decisions about whether to move to new premises or whether to stay where they are or move to refurbished premises. It is a difficult decision for any business. SOGDC are continuing, and I think they also have guidance. I cannot encourage them to build a building when it does not meet guidance in terms of pre-let. And we, both I and SOGDC, would be criticised if we did not meet the pre-let targets. I have no doubt that they are trying hard to find an appropriate tenant that will allow them to start building that building. The 3 blocks we already have, I think, are fantastic. They have led to other movements. There has not been many other big commercial developments apart from those, I believe. SOGDC, I think, want to build them. They are ready to build them when the time is right, and all they need is a tenant, and they are working hard to find one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Supplementary, Deputy Howard?
Thank you, sir. Currently, the pre-let requirement is for 25% of the total area, which obviously is 100,000 square feet building, so it will currently be 25,000 square feet. Does the Minister have any intention to amend or change that pre-let guidance to allow the building to progress? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
No, sir, I haven't discussed that with SOGDC, and I think 25% already seems like a minimum for a pre-let, and I don't think we need to reduce that further. That's my personal opinion. I'm sure SOJDC have plenty of other projects to be getting on with. Thanks, sir.
Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. In a previous answer, the Minister was quick to distance herself as the solely responsible person for the budget and said it was the Council of Ministers' budget. Are we then to assume that the Minister does not agree with all aspects of the budget and she would have brought forward a different budget had it been her sole responsibility?
Minister.
That's an interesting but very speculative question. She will know that Council of Ministers discussions are challenging. People want, many ministers want to spend money in ways that other ministers don't agree. We had some very challenging discussions, but what we did do, crucially this time, is limit the growth bid process. We did not ask departments or expect departments to bring forward multiple growth bids as they have done in years gone by, and that is what has led, in part, I think, to the huge growth we've seen in government spending, the idea that every year departments can come forward with a big wish list of, dear Treasury Minister, can we have money for various projects?
That completes the time for your answers, Minister.
Thanks.
Now I'll move to the final, thank you, Minister, final set of questions about notice to the Chief Minister, and the first question is from Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Nice to be up there first. So does the Chief Minister believe that the decision to go against the Strive proposed hotel was right in terms of environmental versus economic? Did they achieve the right balance between the economic demand and the environmental demand in not approving the site?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Can I start by saying I am absolutely 100% behind the proposal to develop a hotel as suggested, as proposed by Strive. However, what's on the table is just too big. And I have spoken to the owners and I've offered to assist where I can. I understand they're planning to revise their scheme to make it more realistic in relation to size and scale, so without compromising the economic viability. So I very much hope, sir, a good compromise can be made so that the project can go ahead, albeit in a slightly reduced format.
Supplementary? Deputy Renouf.
So when the Chief Minister spoke earlier, he seemed super pleased with the health of the Social Security funds. So why then did he not take more money from the Social Security Fund, rather than, for example, breaking last year's budget promise to not use Pillar 2 funds for day-to-day government spending?
Chief Minister.
I'm not sure I can reconcile that, sir, being criticised for taking money and then we're being asked we can't take more, so I can't help that if this government walked on water, the Deputy would criticise us for not being able to swim. So, we spend a lot of time preparing a budget in light of the growth we've seen, sir. And whilst trying to continue to curb that growth, we put together the best budget we felt we needed to. It was certainly, and didn't want to take any more out of the Social Security Fund than we felt we needed to. And before the Deputy asks about advice from the Fiscal Policy Panel, so we did receive considerable advice in relation to the funds going back to the 2023 report and advice we've taken since, which does show the strengths of that, sir. So we've tried to be prudent right across the budget, sir, with the need to balance the budget, sir, and I hope the Assembly will support that, sir. But I would remind members we are open to amendments and we're happy to discuss any other ideas that members have, sir, that could improve the budget.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. I thought I'd shown the Chief Minister respect by listening to his answers and responding to them. The point is he has made a claim that the Social Security funds, and so did his Treasury Minister, that the social security funds are in rude health and overfunded. And so I would ask then, why did he not consider a short-term measure that would have not have had long-term implications for government funding, such as a short-term cut in social security contributions that would have assisted the public with the cost of living crisis, but not implied long-term commitments that couldn't be met?
Chief Minister.
Well, sir, we had to balance the option, sir, with the fact that we needed to deal with a smaller than the previous years, than 2023's growth bid, sir, which protected and invested in frontline services. And that pretty much correlates with the majority, with the drawdown that we're proposing. I say the drawdown, the reduction in the grant, sir, to the proposed reduction in the grant to the Social Security Fund, sir. We did that, sir, with the knowledge of the projections that we're still putting proposed £184 million into the fund, sir, which is projected to grow to £2.9 billion by the end of the current government plan period.
Deputy Taddeo.
Thank you, sir. Mindful of the fact that COP25, I guess it is taking place around about now. So, in terms of Jersey's government's continued commitment to reducing carbon emissions, can the Minister confirm that he believes his government is still on track and confirm that it is still a priority for him?
Chief Minister.
So I think the Deputy means COP30. And
that's the one.
Thank you, sir. The Deputy will have noticed a number of public consultation documents that have gone out. I'm trying to recall the name of the committee, the group that's just been reformed, who are reviewing our progress. That has started. And we continue to move towards that target. That is our policy. That is our current intention. So I'm not sure we'd have to refer to the Environment Minister in relation to how we're interacting with COP30 this year. Members will realise that some of the very large countries are not participating, which has caused some consternation and led to, regrettably, less interaction across the world, sir, but Jersey is determined to do its bit, sir, as a small and responsible island nation. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Does the Chief Minister agree that vehicular emissions, so cars, vans, etc., is an area where we can make significant improvements in Jersey, not just in terms of carbon emissions, but in pollution reduction? And does the Chief Minister believe that we will be able to take the public along with us in terms of that vision, but also practically in terms of a fair transition?
Chief Minister.
Yes, I do agree with that principle, and I've always said our argument is not so much with the car, with the wheel, it's with the combustion engine, but I think we have to be as realistic as we can. Our access to vehicles is not dependent on the decisions we make, they're dependent on the decisions of the bigger countries and the countries that manufacture the car. So there is not a lot of point of us going ahead of that if it's going to disadvantage us or significantly disadvantage us on what vehicles we have access to. So we have to go at the same speed as the rest of the world. But the sooner that can happen, the sooner we can be less reliable on the combustion engine, I think, the better. And of course, we're hoping and we're monitoring other forms of power that are currently being developed, such as the hydrogen cell.
Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Given the many comments we've heard today about the health of the Social Security Fund, would the Chief Minister agree that now is the right time to correct the unfairness that exists in the system, which means that around 50 islanders per year over the age of 60 who've paid their maximum contributions are now face having to overpay by many thousands of pounds to continue contributing or take a reduced pension and lose out financially? Does he agree that the time is now right to correct that and address it?
I think certainly, sir, the time is right to review that. That's something I've always felt uneasy with, the length of time Ireland have to contribute into the fund to receive the full pension. And I believe that's at the heart of the reason why the Social Security Minister has commissioned a review to be published, I think, and I'm looking at her for guidance, in June 2025. Fortunately, she's not listening, so she's not being able to respond. But that is, she's still not listening either, but that's fine. But the idea of that review is to examine all of these issues and look at how we use the Social Security Fund in the future. And of course, that will reflect from everything to the level of the reserves to the amount of social security contribution. But I do certainly believe, as does the Minister, that it should be reviewed.
Supplementary. Any further questions for the Chief Minister? Deputy Reniff.
Yes, sir. Later in this sitting, we'll be debating a proposition from the Constable of St Helier regarding Commonwealth observers for the election. I wonder if the Chief Minister can state how much it is going to cost government to bring back senators.
Chief Minister.
I think in the long term, I wonder how much it will save the government. Thank you, Deputy. No, sir, I don't know. In relation to the cost of what exactly, could the Deputy be a bit more explicit?
I should remind you, Deputy, it's under Standing Order 65, it is generally, I shall rule out of order a question without notice that asks for statistical, technical, the detailed information. It would be unreasonable to expect a Minister to be able to provide without notice. So it's not permissible to ask this Minister precisely what it's going to cost, because he simply shouldn't be expected to know that under Standing Orders. If that's the point of your question.
Can I rephrase it?
Yes, I'm sure you can rephrase it.
Given that one of the issues with the Constable's proposition may be the cost of bringing in CPA observers, does he think that that would be a worthwhile cost, given the changes to our electoral system and given the widespread use of electoral observers in elections in Guernsey, Isle of Man and so on?
Chief Minister.
I don't have any particularly strong feelings of it. I do support strong observance of our elections. We were observed in the last one. I'm not sure whether it is necessary to have election observers over again. We have been observed and we've been running the island-wide mandate. It's a matter, I think, ultimately for the PPC and the Assembly. I think on balance, I would support election observers coming over, but I say so. I have no particular, I haven't really had time to give that too much consideration, but something I know we're going to.
Supplementary? Any further questions for the Chief Minister? In that case, that brings that series of questions to an end.
Just a quick question. What was that standing order about detailed questions, if I may just...
You can look that up tonight. Standing Order 65-2.
Thank you, sir. I shall remember that one.
Thank you. Up your sleeve. Nothing under J. Under K, there is a statement to be made by the Chair of the Children, Education and Home Affairs Panel in respect of the protection children in Jersey have from online harms. Yes. Deputy Catherine Curtis.
Thank you, sir. I just want to say a few words about the recently published Online Harms Review. It's a busy time, so for any States members who have not read our 168-page review, I'll mention some of the main findings and recommendations. Also, the reasons for this review. As I expect, we are all aware there are grave concerns regarding the welfare of children online, especially when it comes to social media. It's my duty as the Children Education Home Affairs Panel Chair, along with panel colleagues, to raise issues which we feel are not being addressed, and this was one of them. We gathered many submissions and held multiple hearings. What we discovered when we started looking into this last year was that there was no overall plan to deal with this problem, and there still isn't. Jersey is often considered a safe place to bring up children, but now that children spend so much time in the online world, Jersey is just the same as anywhere else regarding dangers. We've seen this in several court cases this year, in which children were recruited into acting as mules in a drugs business, and other children were sexually abused by a man pretending to be a teenage boy online, building relationships on Snapchat in order to meet them as they thought, but they were actually being groomed by an adult. There are also the effects on children from seeing terrible things that they don't have the ability to comprehend, causing anxiety, self-harm, and even suicide. Of course, children do grow up now in a digital world and need to learn how to deal with these matters. And the review does recommend that children become digitally literate and understand digital citizenship to be able to benefit from all the good that the online world can bring. Unfortunately, the platforms have not shown sufficient care for children's welfare, and as stated by the UNCRC, that means government must step in and legislate. And yet Jersey does not have the same safeguards in place as other jurisdictions. The decision to not accept a permissive extent clause that would have included Jersey in the UK's Online Safety Act was made without any consideration of children's rights and without any consideration by other ministers or scrutiny, not even the recording of a ministerial decision. This happened in late 2022. The panel has since been told that the plan, when refusing the permissive extent clause, was for Jersey to make its own legislation to protect children online. So nearly 3 years later, where are we? Well, there has been no plan, nor any legislation based on the needs of children. Yes, we do have some legislation coming into effect soon due to the Vorg report, but that leaves huge gaps in protection for children online. One example in which Jersey differs from other places is that there is no age verification on adult sites. There is in the UK. But children here, being curious, can search for a major porn site, for example, and what they would see on the screen in Jersey is just a tick box to state that you're over 18. So a 10-year-old child could tick that, and the next thing they would see is a series of porn videos with their titles. On the day that age verification measures came into force in the UK, we checked whether they were also in place in Jersey, and they were not. And on clicking onto the site, of probably the most well-known porn website that day, the major video story was titled, and I can't use the actual words, but along the lines of, "My stepdaughter lets me have sex with her." So how would that make a 10-year-old child feel who lives in one of our many blended families about relationships with their step-parents? And the evidence shows that due to children's curiosity, that they will access this sort of thing at a young age. Surveys show that 1 in 10 children will have accessed adult porn sites by the time they are 9 years old. As if the online dangers are not enough already, the advancement of technology is so rapid that new dangers are appearing as we speak. AI chatbots are becoming very popular with children. These have not been designed with children's safety in mind, and we have probably all heard of the 14-year-old boy who recently killed himself, having become obsessed with intense messages from a chatbot. His mother is now suing the platform. One wonders how Jersey's government's legal position would be viewed if something tragic like this were to happen here, considering our lack of legislation. This is an evidence-based review. There are no opinions in the review's findings and recommendations, just fact. It would have been nice for the panel to offer up our views and say, we believe in having our own legislation, or conversely, the panel believes we should accept the permissive extent clause. Or we could say that we believe in the ban on phones in schools, or we do not believe in that. We have refrained from making comment. And I repeat, this is an evidence-based review, and the next step is for government to follow the recommendations and make some difficult decisions. These recommendations call for a comprehensive online safety strategy, for a gap analysis of legislation, for work with public health to deal with the physical dangers of prolonged screen time and on suicide prevention, for digital literacy support for parents, updates to counter cyberbullying, and many more. I want to thank my fellow panel members and all those who contributed to this review, and of course the excellent panel officers. But coming back to the fact that children have been left without the same protections here as children have in the UK or other countries, what we didn't expect to find as a panel was that the government and previous governments have not properly embedded children's welfare into policy making. This means that major decisions affecting children's welfare can be made without any thought to the effect on them. We recommend that all policy considerations should be subject to a formal assessment of children's rights at an early stage, and this, we think, should be urgently considered. What we are also hoping for is an acceptance from the government that these are systemic failings that need to be addressed. I really hope there is not going to be a defensive response to this, because as elected representatives of the people, we are here to act in their best interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Our members now may ask questions of the Chair for up to 15 minutes. Are there any questions for the Chair? Deputy Brenneth.
So I think I heard that the panel chair, but first of all, I thank the panel chair very much for that statement and for the reports, which I think is very timely indeed. When the permissive extent clause was not adopted by the government, I think she said that in 3 years there was not much evidence of any action by the government. Was she able to gain any insight at all into government thinking about the need or otherwise for some legislation to mirror or in some way deal with the same issues as the UK legislation does?
Chair.
Thank you, sir. Yes, we asked questions in public hearings and did get some ideas of the reasoning behind this decision. And the plan, we were told, was for Jersey to develop its own legislation. Having said that, there's no evidence of any legislation being developed or any plan. I think the decision to not accept a permissive extent clause was made in, I think, somewhere like September 2022. And we did get told that there was a response with the VOG legislation, which covers some of the issues, but that report didn't come out till a year later. So that cannot be used as a justification for work being done because it didn't exist at the time. So I think that's my answer, really.
Supplementary. Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir. And I rise as a member of the Assembly rather than a minister to thank the Deputy and her panel for this work. It's made me think very hard. And I say to her, I have in the past spoken to the Education Minister about how children use phones in schools. But I have to admit that I've been woefully short in my knowledge of how phones can affect children in other ways. And her her report and her statement is certainly highlighting things that I hadn't considered before, so I thank her immensely for that. I note her report, it contains data and no opinions, but given that she's now and her panel are in a position to have so much knowledge of the subject, could she just tell me and the Assembly, sir, how she would move forward if she had to move as quickly as she possibly could to protect children?
Chair.
I thank the Deputy for his comments, and certainly I wasn't aware either of how much there is in this new world that children spend so much time in. What we have to do now as a panel is to wait for a response from the ministers and from the government to what we've outlined. Of course, we all have formed our own opinions. We wanted to keep this very fact-based so that it's helpful for the government to make decisions and move on. Having said that, there are certain points which I think are quite outstanding and anyone could agree upon that came up from the experts we spoke to, which is that any legislation that's made should only be made if it's effective, if it can actually be carried out across international borders, because this is an international problem. At the same time, that doesn't mean that we just leave it and don't do anything. So I think there are multiple ways that this problem can be dealt with through helping parents who are not digital natives generally, but helping parents to be able to deal with the problem, by bringing in legislation where it can be effective or updating current legislation, whether that would be to align with Europe or the UK, I don't know. This has to all be considered, but whatever legislation is brought in has to be effective and also not fragmented and also align with other jurisdictions, otherwise it just won't work.
Supplementary.
I don't think there's really a question, sir, but I thank the Deputy for her answer. I would urge her to look upon this as not an issue for just government, but for all members of the Assembly, and urge her to try to work with ministers to come to the best solution as quickly as possible.
Mr. Morel.
Thank you, sir. And I thank the Chair for her statement and also the report of the panel. I think it's incredibly helpful and is able, as we see straight away, to help focus minds on what's no question is an incredibly important matter. I was just wondering if the Chair would agree that from the perspective that there is legislation in progress within the government, and one of those pieces is a piece of legislation that is in law drafting at the moment, which will enable people of all ages to be able to have harmful content removed from the internet. And is she aware of that piece of legislation, it being in law drafting at the moment?
Chair.
Yes, we are aware of some law drafting that's in progress. Still, the overall picture is one of fragmentation. There is nothing at the moment to deal with harms like self-harm and suicide content, so I don't see that there's any legislation that could help with that. Nothing in progress around keeping platforms to account in any way. Nothing about misinformation, for example. I think we do understand that there is some legislation in progress, but it is a very fragmented picture. We need to have a gap analysis to see what's missing. It's not a good place for Jersey to be not in alignment in any way with other jurisdictions. We don't know what could come out of that. So I think we need to see an overall picture of what's missing in the planned legislation.
Supplementary.
I thank you, sir, and I thank the Chair for her question. I don't disagree personally with the view of fragmentation, and I can say work and I'm working to try to ensure that that fragmentation changes to a lack of fragmentation. But with regard to the UK legislation, will the Chair accept or agree, does the Chair agree, that the UK legislation is highly criticised and that in this year, in fact on the 5th of May 2025, the Internet Matters annual report, Children's Wellbeing in a Digital World Index, revealed that there had been no reduction in children's experiences of harm online, and that children in the UK are finding it harder to navigate and recover from the challenges of the digital world, with 2/3 of children saying they experience harm online. And so there hasn't been any immediate, and I accept that it's fairly short-term so far, impact of the UK legislation, and that Jersey should maintain its own control over its own legislation, but does need, I agree, to act more quickly, perhaps.
Chair?
Yes, I would say it's too early to be able to make a judgment like that. We have had feedback about concerns about the UK Online Safety Act, and nothing would be perfect, and it's far from perfect. I know that when speaking to organisations that were involved in trying to develop this in the UK, that they wanted to do more, but there was so much pushback from the major online platforms that they couldn't. So Jersey could develop its own legislation, but how effective will that be in certain areas? In some areas, it might work very well. In others, would the online platforms take any notice of the legislation in Jersey? Possibly not. Would it be better to align with the UK or Europe or Ireland, or to give us more power in our legislation or the overall legislation? This is what we have done for the work we have done to prepare for government to be able to take this forward. And we refrained from giving opinions because we didn't think it would help.
Thank you, sir. And I'd also like to join others in thanking the Chair and the Scrutiny Panel for a very interesting report and something that's absolutely needed. I'm wondering if the Chair could say whether the panel looked at the fact that devices, for example, technological companies such as Apple say that they have parental control and that there are potentially filters to help to monitor children's activities on other similar devices, and whether the panel found that these filters actually do exist, or actually it is actually a pretense, and there are ways to get around that by these adult industry.
Chair.
Yes, it's such a huge subject that we didn't have time to look into this very much. However, there are things that parents can use, controls, I think it's Google Family and so on, which I think can help. Of course, they help when the child is at home, using the internet home, or possibly on their mobile phone if they've managed to bring in some restrictions there. Just as important, I think, is the open conversations between parents and their children to ensure that children feel safe in speaking to someone, their parents or another adult, when they find something unpleasant, something they don't understand, something that upsets them. So I know that the research we did look at showed that I think it's around more than half of children did not feel they could speak to their parents if they saw something that really has upset them online, because they feel, like adults do, when these things happen, they feel ashamed. So any protections that parents can use, I think, would be helpful. That doesn't mean the child might go out and just meet another child and look at something on their mobile phone, which doesn't have any limits at all. So where there is a place for these things that parents can use to add to their child's phones, but it's only a very small part of possible protection from harm.
Supplementary?
Thank you, and I thank the Chair for her answer, though I think I was getting at, and I think it's really from my own experience, that though there are these filters that potentially could be put on technology to be able to limit words particularly, or access particular sites, what I have found that is actually that is not the case. And they're still, those particular sites are still able to get around those filters. And I was wondering if the Chair could, as follow-up potentially to this report, find a way to look into those companies or technologies companies and who say that they are able to do filters, and so parents are lulled into thinking that there is a sense of some protection when actually there isn't.
Chair.
Yes, so I'm sure there are limitations on their use, and we cannot, unfortunately, we cannot trust the major platforms to protect children. One other level of filtering that's available, for example, in the UK, is the network level filtering by internet service providers like Jersey Telecoms here, for example. They wrote to us and complained that the legislation in Jersey does not exist for them to do this, so that they cannot block sites to do with certain things, which they could do if they were in the UK. And this legislation was brought into the UK, I think, in 2017. So this is another level of network filtering which we don't have available in Jersey.
Deputy War.
Thank you, sir. I believe in Australia they've now banned smartphones to under 16s. Obviously, we have age limits in all sorts of areas: alcohol, driving licenses, voting, smoking. Is it appropriate? Should we be considering this kind of legislation?
I think it's full.
Before you start, Chair, the 15 minutes allowed understanding order is about to expire. We can extend for a further 15 if that's the wish of members. Is it the wish of members to extend? There are another 5 or 6 members who wish to ask questions. Members content to extend? Do members want to have that 15 minutes now, or is the adjournment proposed? It's a matter of understanding orders I need to ask if you want to adjourn or continue. No one wants to adjourn, so we'll continue. Yes, Chair.
I think it's for the government to consider all possibilities and what's happening with, in some countries, with not allowing mobile phones at all for younger children, or any social media accounts is very interesting. It's going to be helpful to see how that rolls out. But we do have to remember as well that the UNCRC does state that children need to be able to use the digital world. You know, they grow up in a digital world, and it may not be helpful to cut them off completely in such a way, but I definitely think it should be considered.
Supplementary? Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. And I think this report is excellent, and I think the review itself has been conducted in a really impactful way, and I know that parents are very grateful for the focus on this. I wanted to ask questions about the key recommendations that the panel has picked up from their recommendations, the first of which focuses on children's rights, and there are 2 others. The strategy, the online safety strategy that is recommended, and also the legislative gap analysis. Has the panel made any estimation of how much either of these would cost to do?
Chair.
No, I mean, the simple answer is no, we haven't looked at how much these would cost. I think that's really out of the scope of what we can do as a scrutiny panel when analysing a subject like this.
Supplementary?
Thank you. Would the panel consider discussing that with government ministers ahead of the budget, and if necessary, ensuring that the necessary funds are within the budget? And also one of the other key recommendations, which I wanted to ask if there could be a potential cost or whether conversations could be had to do the work, is around the work with public health to put in place evidence-based guidance, which seems to me like something that could potentially be achieved in short order but would have a huge positive impact.
Chair.
I think some of these things are out of our hands, that we have to wait and see what the responses from ministers to our recommendations. We can try and push for that to be done as quickly as possible. And also the work with public health, which I think would make a huge difference. So we can try as much as we can, but a lot of this will depend on the responses from the ministers.
Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Again, thank you to the panel and to the chair for this report, which is literally critical in terms of public health issues. Just one of the things I wanted to ask is whether or not the panel would consider doing a separate piece of work to address the complex issue around the interface with online platforms, and could that be considered both in the context of what that means for parental controls as well as children and young people accessing that content. And is she minded to do any more about that particular aspect of her work in going forward?
Chair.
I'm not sure about the question, because the review that we've done does look at how young people are using the platforms, so I'm not sure what more is expected.
If I could clarify, sir,
Yes.
it's really to engage in further debate and discussion with the platform providers themselves to see whether or not there is anything that can actually be done to affect better understanding, better control.
Chair.
Yes, of course, I understand now. So we did try and engage with all the major platforms and some of the major websites. And the only reply we had after trying very, very hard over a long term was from TikTok. And TikTok did say that they did talk about the work they're doing, because I'm sure all the platforms do have a part of them which wants to make children safe and ensure that everything is done well. So TikTok did reply to us, and that's public on the website. But apart from that, we could not get any responses at all.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. And I too welcome the report. I think we're opening much wider the discussion on safety for children across our island and across our society, which is a really good thing. So recently, as a prelude to this question very quickly, I was at the School Council Network. I went to the secondary school one, and others went to the primary school one. And the main focus was the development of our online safety platform in conjunction with the department. And the young people worked really well. Can I ask the panel chair, what input was asked for and received from groups like the School Council Network or Jersey Youth Parliament, etc., and young people for this report, this review? Sorry.
Yeah.
Because this was a scrutiny review, which was doing an analysis, analysis of what was there and getting input from experts. That was our focus. So we did invite young people and young people's groups as well to contact us, and we received some submissions from young people. But that was not the focus of the review at this stage. What we have done is made a recommendation that now this is passed on to ministers to work on the online strategy, online harm strategy, that they must consult with young people to take their views into account as well.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Yes, and can I offer to the chair of the panel that they can come and meet with the School Council Network as the start of this process, because there has been a lot of consultation with young people, and they really have helped design a really creative platform in young people's language, so to speak. And then just say to the chair that I think it would be very welcome to come and chat to them and see the work that's going on. It might be slightly reassuring as well.
Thank you. I'm sure the panel would love to do that. That would be really good. Having said that, I must state that it's not the responsibility of the scrutiny panel to continue with this work. The government and ministers need to take responsibility and do it themselves.
Conor St Martin.
Thank you, sir. Once again, I'd like to thank the Chair and her panel for a really excellent and very sobering report. I've asked questions in the past about the Online Safety Act and the permissive extent clause and why it wasn't extended to Jersey. I was told that Jersey was working on its own legislation. I'm sorry I sort of dropped the ball and stopped asking, because I'm very disturbed that it's 3 years and there's been very little progress. And it's been so slow and our children have been left very vulnerable. So I'd like to ask the Chair that even if there has been criticism of the Online Safety Act, the English legislation, surely some legislation over here would have been better than none while we wait for 3 years. And would she agree that urgent legislation is needed and maybe that the Online Safety Act permissive extent clause should have been extended here in the meantime? Thank you.
Chair.
Perhaps it should have been accepted. I don't know. What we have got is an absence of any plan regulations specifically for children at all. So, yes, I mean, it's disappointing, and I think this is something that came out in our report very strongly, was that what is supposed to be embedded into the government about consideration of children's rights is not really there. So it's here and there in parts, but it means that legislation or policy that could help children, could have a huge effect, decisions have been made on that without considering children's rights at all.
Supplementary?
No, thank you. I thank the Chair for her very good answer. Thank you.
Deputy Millar.
Thank you, sir. I think the Chair has touched on my question, although I do have to say I'm astonished that could she just confirm, I think she said that they did not consult with children themselves. Could she just confirm that, because I find it astonishing. Did they consult with parents, and what is the panel's view about the obligations of parents in regard to helping keep their children safe, and what tools and information can be provided to parents so that they can play their part in this keeping their own children safe from harm? Thank you.
Chair.
No need for the Deputy to be astonished, because I did not say we did not consult with children. I said that we did not reach out particularly strongly to children's groups. We did reach out to some, but we did not get a response. We invited children as well to submit to the review, and we did get some children's responses. And as for parents, for any deputy who has taken the time and trouble to look at the submissions received in this review, they will see an enormous amount of responses from parents.
Supplementary?
Sir, I haven't had a chance to read the report. What was the panel's view on what can be done to help parents in this respect?
Chair.
So we have some recommendations around digital knowledge being available to parents, because parents, as I think I said before, many of them have not grown up as digital natives and do not know how to help their children. So we have got that as a recommendation in the report.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. And I too welcome the report, and I think it highlights the need for us to change our culture in response to technology, which is a very general one. I've mentioned it in respect of cybersecurity, and indeed the report does highlight the need to change parenting culture as well. The question that I have relates to the manner of analysis by the report, particularly in terms of the analysis comparison of the the DEA, as we call it in the EU, the Digital Services Act. And also in respect of the recommendation 10, which was contemplating that the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development conduct some sort of consultation about the ability to get technological filters in. And I just wondered the extent to which the panel had considered the use of VPNs and the how far advanced generally the technology is in terms of enabling people to address that and circumvent that, the actual platform providers, as opposed to putting more emphasis on parenting controls.
Chair.
Well, firstly, I don't think we did make any comment about changing parenting culture. We just think that parents need more help in understanding the online world and what they can do about it. We do have a recommendation about the network filtering, because this was in response to what experts were telling us, including the internet service providers in Jersey, which would be helpful. As for VPNs, in some of our public hearings, one with one of the police officers who is an expert in this field, they did state that VPN use is very widespread and it's a huge problem, but that it does not mean that we should not try and do something about this. And in the UK, for example, the Online Safety Act has put a duty on platforms to make all efforts to stop children from accessing dangerous material. So that means that quite a lot of the major sites now have built-in ways to try and detect VPN use, because they know that they could come under financial, they could be charged by the government if they do not show that they are protecting children from accessing bad material online. So there are developments already around VPN use to try and deal with that. I think that because it's become so widespread, also it doesn't mean that an 8 or 9-year-old is going to have access to it, maybe an older child, but not a very young child. Because it's become so widespread does not mean that we should do nothing.
Well, thank you, Chair. There's only 28 seconds left, so I think that really brings the period for questions to an end.
So my answer,
yes,
the answer I asked about the analysis, the comparison of the Digital Services Act in the EU in terms of the advantages it brought compared to the Online Harms Act.
Can you do that in 12 seconds, Chair? That's quite complicated.
No, I don't think so.
No. All right, that brings the period of questions to an end.
May I propose the adjournment, sir?
Members content to adjourn? Adjourn to 2:15.